Life happens everywhere. Like it never even happened, only happens here. The cleanup and restoration specialists at 1-800-SERVPRO and ServPro.com.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real-world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome live to 3YTV and tonight's broadcast of the Hacksaw Premier Cup Series for the Slyce Pizza Bar Bluegrass 200 in the Bluegrass state of Kentucky. It'll be 200 miles, 134 laps around the mile-and-a-half Kentucky Speedway here tonight. I'm Peter Short. Joining me in the booth is Greg Rentz. And Greg, this racetrack, newly reconfigured Kentucky, is a little bit different than the way it used to race. A little bit faster now, of course, a newer pavement out there, but we've seen it's been pretty slick here in the practice session that you've been watching here prior to the start of this event. But I think we're going to see a lot of action here tonight, Greg.
Absolutely, Peter. We saw the debut of this new racing surface last year in the NASCAR Cup Series, and it put together a phenomenal race, including the last lap battle between the Busch brothers. So I've been really looking forward to being able to come here to the new Kentucky ever since the moment they announced that this was going to be going down. This is going to be a lot of fun to watch this race. We have seen a lot of cars slipping and sliding around, a lot of drivers having to fight their cars, and I think we're in for a pretty good 134 lap race here tonight, Peter.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, this racetrack used to be extremely bumpy in the corners and very, very flat. Now, it isn't quite as bumpy as it used to be. So that's something that these drivers are going to have to deal with tonight. A little bit smoother of a racetrack. It's a different racetrack. It drives very differently from the way it used to. And it'll be great to see all these drivers out there on the racetrack here tonight. Last week was a spectacular 200-mile race at Indianapolis Speedway. It was round 6 of the ServPro Wheelman Showdown, and John Jenkins took home the victory last week. There you can see the race results from that race. And really, Greg, we saw Greg Evans dominate that race. Led 42 laps out of the 80, plus we had a little bit extra because we had a little bit of extra time at the end, but John Jenkins got the win. It was all crazy at the end, Greg. We saw a fairly clean race up until about the last 15 or so laps where we had a couple of cautions and different pit strategies. A couple cars elected to stay out on older tires, and really it caused a lot of chaos at the front of the pack. It was a fantastic finish. If you did not watch last week's race, make sure you go back and watch it. But John Jenkins was the one who was able to prevail in that race and take home the win. Will Worcester, he pretty much sat around the 5th position for all of the race. He was able to get through all the melee at the end, come home second. Woody Mahan got his best finish of the season, his first podium of the 2020 Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series with a 3rd place. Troy Hay, great run for him in 4th. Jimmy McKee, another solid run for him, as is Alan Young had a solid run. John Broussard, Mark Cohen, Jason Stewart, Sam Crow rounded out the top 10. That's a good run down there for Sam Crow. You will see that number 5 machine in action here tonight. And Greg, looking at the cars that we do have in action here tonight, somewhat of a small field here tonight. Of course, we usually see all 40 spots taken in the Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series, but tonight we only have 31 cars out there in the field, and we have some drivers like Doug Mullins in the chat thinking that possibly we could have a clean and green race all the way through. And of course, Greg, there is the bounty. It's an $80 bounty. The top 8 cars to finish a caution-free race without any incidents will get $10 a piece. And that bounty has continued to go up and up and up, as it has been quite some time from when we last saw a caution-free race here in the Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series. Of course, that isn't too crazy of a thing with full fields, but maybe with 31 cars here tonight, maybe we can see that. But let's see if we can pull up the points graphic before we move over into the qualifying session. A little bit of a revised points graphic for you this week, because you have to remember that in the Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series, there are two ways to get into the playoffs. And the first one is you can win and you're in. However, there's a caveat to that rule, and you have to subtract the number of did not starts, DNSs, from the number of wins. And if that number is positive, you can automatically qualify for the playoffs. Those drivers who have automatically qualified for the playoffs with that current way in, John Jenkins, Tyler Seville, Greg Evans, Mitch Brown. We'll come back to Mitch Brown, because I'll tell you what, Mitch Brown's he is not going to be racing here tonight. He does have a suspension, so we will not see the number 51. So that will be struck through here tonight. But then you have the rest of the field: Brian Yazik, Will Warser, Krobach, Jimmy McKee, Troy Haight, Jason Stewart, Adam Jersky, and Alan Young all kind of qualified in on points. But then you have that cut line down there: John Broussard, Christopher Bouchard, and Woody Mahan, just a couple of points out of the playoff picture right now. They don't have any wins to their name so far this season. And you have to look at that. Only 3 points separating Alan Young in the number 24 machine and John Broussard. But I'll tell you what, Greg, I've been really impressed with the way Alan Young's been racing as of late. Remember, just a couple weeks ago here in the Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series, he was close to the cut line of 20th place in points. Of course, 20th place in points is a magical number in this series. The top 20 in points are automatically qualified into this race when we do have a full field. Of course, tonight everyone's going to be racing because we don't have a full field, but there are some races where we get as much as 50 qualifiers for only 40 spots. But Alan Young, very impressive over the last few weeks, Greg. Great to see himself get up into the top 12 points.
And Alan Young, we've been talking about him throughout the course of the last few weeks. Remember, he won the Boswell's Country Roads Harley-Davidson Thursday Night Throwback Series opener back at North Wilkesboro, and ever since then we've been keeping an extra close eye on that young man you're seeing on the screen right now, the 24 Alan Young. He has done a great job over the last few weeks, got himself in position to try to steal a couple of wins here in this Tuesday night Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series, and it has been so much fun watching him just come up and really begin putting together a lot of solid runs in this number 24, and we'll see how he does today. But I gotta say, throughout practice and ever since his entry into the series, I've been so impressed with this young man that you're seeing on screen right now. AJ Digby in the 14, great run in Indianapolis last week, and it was very strong up near the top of the charts in practice today. So he just now began his first lap. AJ Digby, he has been very impressive over the last couple of weeks for me, Peter. Another guy who's been impressive over the last few weeks is a guy at the top of the charts who's got tonight's sponsor, Slyce Pizza Bar, on the hood. That's the 57 of Craig Stykes. He has been another guy who, last couple of weeks, has really been putting himself in position for wins.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, really, all of the Will Warser racing machines are starting to hit their stride. Of course, we'll see all of them with Slyce Pizza Bar on the hood here tonight. We saw a quick shot there of Craig Stykes in the number 57 machine. Tyler Seville right now in the number 11 machine is going to slot into second right behind Craig Stykes. So it's the Slyce Pizza Bar 1-2 right now up at the top of the board. And now Will Warser slotted into third as well. So it's a 1-2-3 for Will Warser Racing. There you see that number 29 machine shooting down the backstretch, trying to do their sponsor well here tonight around this mile-and-a-half racetrack out in the Bluegrass state of Kentucky. Alex Giese has slotted himself up into the fourth position. AJ Digby is in fifth in the number 14 machine. Like you said, Greg, very impressive with an 8th, a 5th, and a 3rd in his first 3 starts. Of course, last week at Indy did get into a little bit of trouble, but we have a new man atop the board. And I'll tell you what, Greg, it is the number 2 machine of Greg Evans, trying to look for a little bit of redemption in that number 2 machine. Last 2 weeks have not gone to plan for that machine right there. Sporting a new paint scheme this week. And I'll tell you what, Greg, that Freightliner number 2 here tonight is Freightlining its way around the racetrack.
Yeah, that was the first thing I saw when I came over to Kentucky today, was that new Greg Evans Chevy Camaro, the Freightliner colors on, and it looks great, and it is fast. He's the only driver to run a 30.392. And Peter, you mentioned it just a second ago that Greg Evans, the last couple of weeks, not exactly going his way, but we're at a track that is definitely in his wheelhouse. 1.5 mile V-shape oval. Greg Evans has owned these things throughout the course of the season and was on pace for possibly another one. Last time we were at one 2 weeks ago at Chicago, and unfortunately got caught up in a late incident, which ended his day. But he's on top of the board right now as the last few drivers making their way out, including last week's winner, the 7 of John Jenkins, on screen right now.
Absolutely. That number 7 machine atop the points as well, padding his points lead last week out at Indianapolis in round 6 of the Serve Pro Wheelman Showdown here in the American Sim Racing Series. Hacksaw PC's Premier Series. There you see the number 4 machine, J.R. Bash, working his way around the racetrack. Looks like J.R. Bash currently scored 28th out of the 28 cars to take time. But going back to Greg Evans, he has 3 wins this season on mile-and-a-half racetracks, getting the wins at Charlotte, as well as at Latimer Speedway, and of course at Kansas. And I'll tell you what, Greg, Kansas is one of those racetracks that's somewhat similar in shape to this one. Of course, a D-shaped oval. And we saw, like you said, Greg Evans very fast at Chicagoland a couple weeks back. Unfortunately involved in a late race skirmish there, put him down the order, but he led a good portion of that race as well. So do expect to see that Freightliner number 2 atop the board here tonight. Adam Jersky in the number 69 machine. How about this, folks? The Beef Jersey's Cheesecake number 69 slotting into 3rd position. That's a great qualifying run for Adam there. Greg?
He's got some strawberry cheesecake in there tonight. He's got the top of the board for cheesecake tonight. 3rd quick. Great job by Adam Jersky in the number 69 Chevy Camaro. Top 5 qualifying runs, splitting up kind of the monopoly that Will Worsler Racing had there on the 2nd through 4th spots as he tucks in behind Craig Stykes in front of Tyler Seville. And we talked about drivers who have been on hot streak. How about Tyler Seville, Peter? Quite a few very solid runs for that number 11 car, sitting 4th on the charts right now, going back to his win a few weeks ago at Michigan. Ever since then, Tyler Seville has really been on a hot streak, not just in the Premier Series either. He has had 2 very good runs in the Throwback Series, which, by the way, our next broadcast on 3 Wide TV after this is that Boswell's Country Roads Harley Davidson Thursday Night Throwback Series. We're going back to the old classic Daytona for the Firecracker 50 coming up here at the Legacy Daytona International Speedway. 50 laps, 125 miles, so it's the Firecracker 125. But Peter, Tyler Seville, good runs in both that series and the series that's running tonight, so he's another one who's very hot right now.
Yeah, he's proven to be a wheelman in those 1987 Cup cars. Very cool to see all of the drivers going around Daytona this Thursday night. It is, like you said, the Legacy Daytona, and folks, it is very, very bumpy, so they're going to have to contend with those bumps upwards of 210 miles an hour at Daytona. Of course, those are all unrestricted NASCARs. Back in the day, they didn't have things called restrictor plates. They just let them sail off into turn number 1 at Daytona. I'm super stoked for that race. Make sure you tune in same time right here Thursday night on 3 Wide TV. Let's give a shout out to some of the people that we have in the chat. Doug Mullins rooting on his Will Worsler Racing teammates from the stands here tonight. He will not be racing, but Doug, hope all is well with you. He says, great lap by Evans. Sure enough, it was a spectacular lap. Seth Olson rooting on the number 69 machine, the Jersey Cheesecake machine. I'll tell you what, I could do for a Jersey Cheesecake right now. Nikki Worsler rooting on Will Worsler Racing, and Jay Crable says, I will hit the wall tonight. Maybe we can bring up a Jay Crable wall hit counter. Hopefully it stays 0 for you, Jay, but best of luck here tonight. Ranger Dangers, and let's have fun tonight, everyone. I even have Jim Foose in the chat. And of course, we cannot forget Greg and Kathy giving us a shout out there prior to the start of the race. Hope all is well with you and Kathy. Sit back and enjoy 200 miles, 134 laps around this mile-and-a-half racetrack. Expecting to see a lot of green flag action here tonight as the final 2 minutes of qualifying tick away. And Greg, one thing I've noticed is we have 3 drivers who currently have yet to put a qualifying time, and that's Christopher Bouchard in the number 50, Richard Fletcher in the number 43, and Todd Kirkwood in the number 86 machine. And Todd is sporting a new paint scheme this week on his Ford, so keep an eye out for that one, folks, because it's a pretty good-looking ride. And Todd Kirkwood here getting a start at the Kentucky Speedway. But a minute and a half here, Greg, and the track's fallen quiet, no one out there practicing, and I'm kind of surprised I didn't see any more drivers practice getting on pit road. With this slightly smaller field here tonight, the chances of green flag pit stops are a little bit higher, and I didn't really see many drivers practice getting to pit road, and this is actually a pretty tricky one to get onto, Greg.
Yeah, we actually saw him practice. I was watching a little bit of practice before you got into the tower, and they were sliding, trying to get on the pit road, and I saw several cars actually spin out coming on the pit road. Well, the big one that I remember was Jason Stewart in the number 1 car, who had a big slide. He actually wound up nosing it down into the pit wall. So if these drivers have to fall into a position where green flag pit stops come into play, that could be a little bit of an issue moving forward, especially on those old tires when they start getting worn out near the end of a run and you're coming down at upwards of 160 miles an hour trying to get slowed down to pit road speed. It could be a little interesting getting on the pit road. Going back to what you mentioned a little bit ago with cars that had not got or posted the time, Chris Bouchard, at least I saw him on track during qualifying. He must have caught the wall both laps and was not able to get a time because he was on track in practice, and he did not have a lot of speed in that car in practice either, going 31.0.
Yeah, definitely needs to pick up the pace just a smidgen down there. But of course, qualifying's one thing, racing is another, and we have now advanced over into the race session. And you can see, let's see if we can bring up the temperatures for this race session, because they're going to be very different than what they were in qualifying just a little bit ago. There you see it, bottom left-hand corner of the screen. Current ambient temperature, 89 degrees Fahrenheit. Track temperature, 109. And look at that wind. That's quite high at 14 miles per hour. And I'll tell you what, Greg, an ambient temperature of 89 degrees Fahrenheit here in iRacing is pretty much as hot as it gets. It's going to be really slick out there here today.
Oh yeah, the hotter the track temperature and the air temperature, the slippier the racing surface is, and it's going to be very, very fun to watch these guys wrestle this thing around, especially in the opening laps, Peter. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we'll be keeping our eyes very much on the front of the field. As you see, Greg Evans perhaps having some connection issues on pit road there before this race. But Peter, we're getting set to go, so let's go through the starting lineup. We're starting with Greg Evans on the pole into number 2. One of the Will Worsler Racing entries to his outside, Craig Stykes into number 57. Adam Jersky into number 69. Great qualifying effort for him. Will roll off third with another one of the Will Worsler entries. Tyler Seville in fourth. The owner of Will Worsler Racing, Will Worsler, in fifth. Alex Giese, another great qualifying effort for him, will start sixth. AJ Digby, been so impressive in the early stages of his ASRS career, in seventh, with Cody Spiker in eighth. Woody Mahan and points leader in last week's winner, John Jenkins, round out the top 10.
Troy Haight and Michael Krobach make up row number 6. Behind them in row number 7, the number 8 machine of Jimmy McKee and the number 33 of Tony Schoen. Sam Crow and Michael Whiting will make up row number 8, while Jared Haggerty and Brian Yazik are on row number 9. Tim Knott and James Lorello will round out your top 20 there, Greg.
Jason Stewart, Jake Grable, 21st and 22nd. They're rolling off pit road right now. John Van Varellis and Alan Young matching his car number with the starting position, 24th, but watch for that 24 to make ground throughout the field. Chris Hughes and Richard Stallings make up the 25th and 26th spots. Last two cars to qualify on time are Pete Baskins in the 27 and J.R. Bash in the 4. Chris Bouchard, Richard Fletcher, and Todd Kirkwood all taking provisionals. Well, Peter going down the backstretch, ready to take the green flag, and Greg Evans and Craig Stykes are going to get this thing started here in just a moment. As the pace truck is going to dive off, we'll be racing here at Kentucky. Are you excited?
I am excited. This is going to be a great race here tonight. I'm watching the back half of the field. There's a couple of cars not lined up, including Richard Fletcher and Todd Kirkwood. Not 100% sure why they aren't 100% lined up, but the pace truck doesn't care. He's going to come down pit road, put the race in the hands of the number 2 machine of Greg Evans. The flag man nowhere to be seen there on the left-hand side of the screen, but nonetheless, green flag is virtually in the air somewhere. There's a green flag because we're racing at Kentucky, Greg.
He got caught taking a nap in the tower, wasn't able to get down to the flag stand in time. Evans able to break away from Sykes in the early going. I noticed on the initial start, Tyler Seville got right up on the back bumper of his teammate to try to give him a shot down the backstretch, but it didn't work out for him as much as they wanted, as Evans was able to clear. Coming through turns 3 and 4 for the first time, Greg Evans, no surprise, he's out front leading the way, but heavy pressure coming from Craig Sykes. Evans leads lap 1.
Greg Evans out front, Craig Sykes in second, Tyler Seville in third. My voice went up a little bit there as Will Worsler and Adam Jersky almost had it coming together on entry into turn number 1. Worsler going to slot up into the 4th position. Digby is now going to get around the number 69 machine, and Adam Jersky falling like a stone here, almost back to the 10th position. He's currently being scored in 7th in that number 69 Beef Jersey's Cheesecakes machine, although he's going to fend off the number 77 of Alex Giese, who is sliding up back just a little bit himself. But look at this. Tyler Seville in the number 11 machine, he's going to let Will Worsler pass him, and Seville will drop now down to the 4th position. Worsler now up into 3rd, but here comes Craig Sykes up at the front. They're side by side for the race lead as they go off into turn number 3, and Sykes is just going to take it away from Greg Evans.
Craig Sykes has been one of the strongest cars in the field over the last few weeks, and he just drove right around Greg Evans. Give lap 3 to the 57, and the last couple of weeks, Peter, that 57 has been in position to really have a good run, and much like Greg Evans, just hasn't gone his way either time. And here he is out front once again, this time at Kentucky, and you know that Slyce Pizza Bar has got to be happy seeing their cars running 1st, 3rd, and 4th here in the early stages. You see Seville taking a peek underneath his boss, Will Worsler, in the 3rd spot, as they ride behind Greg Evans right now, as Craig Sykes tries to pull away. Taking a look a little bit deeper in the field, Adam Jersky started 3rd, has already fallen to the 7th spot as Woody Mahan has gotten around. Haven't talked about the HPP simulations boards yet. Michael Krobach up in the top 10 here in the number 72 after starting 12th. He's up 4 positions. He is up to 8th.
Meanwhile, his teammate Brian Yazik is set back around the 17th position, which is right about where he qualified in the other HPPsimulations.com number 55 machine. And then a little bit further back, Pete Baskins, another teammate in the number 27 machine, is riding in the 28th position. But out front, it's all Craig Sykes as of right now. Got himself up to a 0.9 second lead in the number 57 machine. Greg Evans sitting in 2nd. Will Worsler now up to 3rd. Seville still sitting in 4th, which is where he qualified after getting shuffled back a spot by his teammate. Will Worsler, AJ Digby up 2 spots. Woody Mahan, last week's 3rd place finisher, is up to the 6th position. Great start for him. And Krobach +4. Only James Lorello and Alan Young are also +4. As I say that, Christopher Bouchard now going to be scored +4 from the start. So a couple of hot starters here early on, Greg, in the first 7 laps.
And we've seen that a couple of times out of most of these same cast of characters, Woody Mahan, Alan Young, and so on, the guys that we talked about just a moment ago. They make their way through the field early in the race. How about this? We haven't seen him in a few weeks. Talking about that number 6 Cheerwine Toyota that was on screen a moment ago. Jared Haggerty back in the field tonight after missing for 3 races. Good to have Haggerty back in the field, because Peter, before he took a couple of weeks off there, Haggerty was really starting to piece together some very good runs. The results just weren't there because it seems like he was getting caught up in late race incidents near the end of most of those races. But the number 6 Toyota has had quite a few solid runs in his last few starts here in the series.
Yeah, we actually haven't seen him in 3 races. His last race here in the American Sim Racing Series, Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series, was back at Michigan. So he's missed 3 races, and it is great to have him back in the field here tonight. Let's put a focus on the number 1 machine of Jason Stewart for just a brief moment, right there in front of the number 44 of Michael Whiting. Jason is running a white number 1 car here today. Has a friend of his who is struggling with COVID-19, and this is Jason's way of saying get well, buddy. And our thoughts and prayers are with him as he fights through COVID-19, and that's the reason for that white car here tonight. So hopefully everyone in the chat can send your well wishes to Jason Stewart and his friends so he can get through all of the madness that's going on right now. Best of luck there. Hope all comes out well of that situation. I know there have been positive COVID-19 stories, as much as you might not hear out there. There are positive stories of people who are intubated and then they get out of the hospital and all of that good stuff. So hoping for a positive outcome there for Jason Stewart and his friend. Meanwhile, the number 72 machine, Michael Krobach, right there in the 9th position now. Right in front of him is the number 7 machine, last week's race winner, John Jenkins. And Greg, John has a win on a mile and a half this season, taking the win back at Las Vegas, the second round of the season. And this racetrack, similar to Las Vegas, both D-shaped mile and a half ovals, so I'm expecting to see that number 7 machine slowly make his way towards the front, especially coming in tonight as the points leader by 52 points over Tyler Seville.
Yeah, Las Vegas, a little bit more banking than you find here at Kentucky than Las Vegas, of course, a very, very popular racetrack on the schedule. So for John Jenkins to get that win early in the season, mind you, I believe that was only the 2nd or 3rd race. That was actually before I came on board for the American Sim Racing Series full time. So didn't get a chance to see that one, but John Jenkins definitely has been the strongest car in the season. Him and Greg Evans have done a very good job making their way through the field. But again, I'm very impressed so far with what I'm seeing out of the race leader, the 57, Craig Stykes. Another very solid start to him. Boy, I don't know what clicked over the last 3 races or so, but Craig Stykes has found something in that number 57 Camaro. He has been up front leading laps 3 races in a row now. We'll see if tonight may be the night as we begin lap number 14. 13 in the books. He's led 10 of them thus far, and Craig Stykes looking solid once again. Greg Evans not letting him get away, though. He's actually beginning to close the gap a little bit. It was down to 0.6 of a second that time. Behind him, a little bit of a battle beginning to brew between 2 more of the Will Worsler Racing teammates, including Will Worsler himself. He is 3rd, holding off Tyler Seville, your Michigan winner.
You know what I'm starting to see, though, Greg, is lap times are absolutely going through the roof. You see that you had some lap times at the bottom of your screen there briefly, but Craig Stykes last time by ran a 32.115, 116 there on the screen. His fastest lap in this race was a 30.7. That's 1.4 seconds slower than his fastest lap, and we're only on lap number 15. These cars can go about 65 laps on fuel. If you are thinking that you might be able to stretch it on a single stop in this race, well, you might have to think about tires. Of course, we do have a tire limit in the Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series, and these drivers have been given an extra set this week due to the fact that the tire wear is extremely high. But I do think as this run goes on, Greg, we're going to start to see those drivers out there who are good at saving tires, and we have seen all season long the number 2 machine of Greg Evans is spectacular when it comes to saving tires. And don't look now, but over the last 5 laps, he has been averaging about 1/10 of a second faster than your current race leader, Craig Stykes.
Always comes up in that number 2, Greg Evans. But we're talking about guys who are able to save both tires and fuel. If you're talking about that in the ASRS series, you have to talk about the number 11 of Tyler Seville. The Michigan winner won that race on fuel mileage, saving fuel, saving tires, made it work. So if this race comes down to fuel mileage, if this thing stays green, you have to have that number 11 factored in for one, as well as you see Troy Haight making a move now into number 28 to the inside of Alan Young, who, by the way, Alan Young has been creeping up even more and more through the field, up to 16th now. This is the battle for that 16th position. Troy Haight trying to get it back, as Alan Young has gained 8 spots right now. Troy Haight, the 28, has lost 6 spots, trying to gain some back. Troy Haight slipping here at the start of the race, but now feeling the heat from Tony Schoen. That's for 17th right now. So kind of 2 opposites right now. Alan Young gaining, Troy Haight losing here in the early stages.
Absolutely, but I'm keeping an eye on the battle for the race lead because that number 2 machine is absolutely moving in on the race lead. You see the front of that Freightliner Chevrolet headed down the backstretch. In the rear view of the number 57 is Stykes. Stykes running a little bit higher up on the racetrack here through the middle of the corner. We'll see if Stykes gets a run coming out of 4. Not there. And Craig Stykes will lead yet another lap. Meanwhile, behind them, Tyler Seville, like you mentioned there, Greg, starting to move in on the number 29 machine of Will Worcester, even Worcester closing in on Craig Sykes. Fastest car out there on the racetrack last time by was actually the number 14 machine of AJ Digby. We do have Savannah Morris in the chat here, rooting on AJ here tonight once again. Hope all is well with you, because AJ is very, very fast out there on the racetrack right now. And hopefully that number 14 machine can start to close in. Meanwhile, we have a replay here on the 3Y TV. And Greg, what are we going to see here?
We may see something with the number 7 of John Jenkins, because he is not on the racetrack right now. The points leader is on pit road and is 2 laps down right now. And the number 7, something happened with the race leader. I've been keeping my eye on Troy Haight, who is losing ground. He has fallen outside the top 20 now, and happened to just look down. And John Jenkins in the number 7 is on pit road and he has lost connection here at 3Y TV. So the points leader out of the race. But here we see, I think this is back live in the number 57. So John Jenkins, connection issues for the points leader. That, Peter, is huge.
And remember, going back a couple of weeks back at Chicago, he had connection issues prior to the race in that number 7 machine. Ooh, down the backstretch, looks like the number 1 machine, Jason Stewart, just caught the wall. Everything is okay. But he had those connection issues that John Jenkins back in Chicagoland prior to the race, and we thought he might not even make it to the grid, and he was the pole sitter. So once again, connection issues striking the number 7 machine again here tonight. And as of right now, he would be scored the last place finisher here tonight in the 31st position. But there is the number 11 machine of Tyler Seville, who has been passed by the number 84 machine of Woody Mahan. As Mahan Speed Laboratories on the hood of that number 84 machine, showing a little bit about what he's been cooking up in his laboratories, because again, so far, a strong run for that number 84 machine, like he had last week at Indianapolis. This is the battle a little bit further back in the pack. This is around the 20th position or so. This is, excuse me, around the 14th position. Got Dallin Young in the number 24 machine going underneath the 14th place Cody Spiker here in turn number 1 and 2. And Greg, one driver I've been impressed with is the number 33 of Tony Schoen here tonight. You know, we haven't seen a whole lot of speed out of Tony Schoen this season, but he's had a few good finishes because he's very good at keeping his car clean, managing his race car. And one of the things that really gives him that craft is the fact that he races a lot of Indy cars. And you know, you and I know those Indy cars, you touch the wall with them, it is game over. Luckily, there's a little bit more give in these stock cars, but Schoen is very good at keeping his car clean. And he's having a good run here so far in the 16th position, trying to make up some positions on the cars in front of him. It's like he does have a challenge from the number 50 of Christopher Bouchard here halfway down the backstretch, though. Bouchard down there on the inside. Remember, he started in the 29th position at the start of this race, so he's gained 12 spots in the first 25 laps. And, ooh.
How did he save that?
He did
How did he save that? Look at this on the 3Y TV replay. Jason Stewart got right up on him and just took the air off the spoiler. And Bouchard did a great job. We'll go on board here with the gyro cam on the 3Y TV replay. And let's see just how far towards pit road he was facing. Wow, great save there by Bouchard, who was the biggest mover of the race, still is right now, even despite losing a spot, was the biggest mover of the race, was plus 12 when that happened. Now it has to settle it down. But meanwhile, up front, Will Worcester has gotten around Greg Evans for the second spot. So making the Will Worcester Racing 1-2 right now.
Yeah, 1-2-5 right now for Will Worcester Racing. Craig Sykes leading the race. Will Worcester in second. Tyler Seville in fifth. Of course, doing their sponsor justice here tonight in the Slyce Pizza Bar Bluegrass 200. And you see Slyce Pizza Bar's logo on the hood of that number 29 machine. And there, Greg Evans going for a big slide coming out of turn number 4. That's going to open the door for Woody Mahan to scoot around the outside. And Woody Mahan going to take the third position here, as looks like Tyler Seville is going to try and take the spot here. Here we go on board with Greg Evans. Watch how loose he gets right there in the center of the corner. Tries to save it, does a good job of it, but then once again it kind of breaks free right on exit. And watch Woody Mahan scoot around the outside of that machine. And the number 11 machine of Tyler Seville also able to get on by as well. So move your pole sitter Greg Evans back to fifth. Meanwhile, Todd Kirkwood in the number 86 machine has headed down pit road. and he is sitting in his pit box. Don't know if there is damage on that machine or not. Do see from afar some possible right side damage, just a little bit, and it looks like he is going to jump out of that car. That might be day done for Todd Kirkwood and that team there, and that's a tough break for them, Greg.
A tough break for Todd Kirkwood. New look for him in the Kirkwood Transportation entry, and not the way he wanted his day to go out of the race on lap 29. Craig Slyce continuing to lead, got the lead on lap 3 and has set sail ever since. As you see it right there, your top 5, Sykes, Worsler, Mahan, Seville, and Evans. And Greg Evans, he had that big save off turn number 4 a moment ago. And Peters, we're starting to see what we were talking about later in the run. Those cars are going to be slipping and sliding, and we've seen it a couple times now. Saw it out of Evans. We saw it out of the 50 of Bouchard. So tire wear beginning to already factor into this one. John Jenkins has made it back into the session and is just now getting back out on the racetrack, Peter. The 7 of John Jenkins making it back out 11 laps down. He's going to have to go 8 laps to gain a spot on Todd Kirkwood. So John Jenkins is just going to try and gain as many spots as he possibly can before the end of this one. But he's 11 laps down right now in the points lead, currently being scored in the 31st position. So not the race that John Jenkins needed as the points leaders. He's going to lose a lot of ground here to the rest of the field in the points. But Greg Evans in the 2 car, he's not having as good of a race as we thought we would have out of him. We thought he'd be up near the top of the charts all day, but he has actually slipped to the 5th position. Kind of an uncharacteristic Greg Evans run so far, Peter.
Yeah, I mean, we were singing praises about saving tires, but we've definitely seen him lose a couple spots here over the last few laps. But who has saved their tires? That is a good question, folks, because the 2 fastest drivers over the last few laps have been James Lorello and Brian Yazik, 10th and 9th positions currently out there on the racetrack. And we have seen Yazik save his stuff quite a bit this season, and he's now cracked the top 10. He qualified down at 18th. Lorello qualified 20th, and now he is inside the top 10. You see them running together there on the racetrack, right behind the 3rd place qualifier, Adam Jersky, who's lost a couple of positions from the start of the race. Meanwhile, you see Bouchard go back to work underneath the 33 of Tony Schoen. He's finally made that pass. No slip slide in this time. Looks like Tim not going to follow through to take that position as well. The number 41 machine is currently scored in the 18th position, so Schoen now back to 19th, although they're still trying to tussle for that position as they head off into turn number 1. Great run so far by everyone in the field here, correct? 34 laps in the book, just about 100 laps to go this time by, and so far we have been caution-free. Seen a couple of cars have issues, jumped down pit road, 2 cars that is, and a couple of cars go for some big slides.
Woody Mahan!
Well, there you go.
Mahan.
I was just saying, we've seen a couple big slides, but no one's spun it around. And Woody Mahan right there showing that that's still going on. Let's go on board with the number 84 machine as you see him just getting loose. That's kind of an uncharacteristic spot for that to happen, Greg. He was kind of washing up the racetrack. Usually on a racetrack like this, you get a little bit push loose. But maybe they're just unable to get the power down in the racetrack there with how hot it is. Remember, at the top of the show, we saw the track temperature. Let's see if we can bring up the current weather conditions, because I bet you the track temperature has only gone up a little bit. It has. It's gone up about 2 degrees Fahrenheit. That continues to make it more and more slippery. But the ambient temperature is still sitting at 89 degrees Fahrenheit, just under 90 degrees. Very, very hot for these drivers out there today, and that will make the racetrack pretty slick, but so far no cautions.
It's been fun watching these guys wrestle these things around. William Mahan getting loose again off of turn 4, nowhere near as bad that time, but he had another little moment there off of turn number 4 that time by. As we take a look at some action deep in the field, that's Tim Knott. Here's Troy Haight. Cody Spiker has really fallen down a little bit. Look at this hornet's nest here, Peter. What in the world is going on here? Back around 20th position. That was some wild stuff. We had Jake Crable, John Van Varellis, Michael Whiting up in front of this. That was interesting off of turn number 4. So definitely guys beginning to get racy here in this one. And it looked like Tim Knott in the 41 has had enough, as he has the hand out the window. He has a lot of damage to the front of the 41 car. Something happened to the 41 of Tim Knott. He has damage.
Yeah,
He's bringing quite a few with him.
I was going to say, about a lap ago, going off into turn number 3, there was a coming together between the 3 cars that are currently on pit road. We'll see if possibly we can go back and get a replay of it here on 3YT. The other cars coming down pit road as well, but it was the 1, the 41, and the 19 all had it coming together in turn number 3. And definitely all 3 of them getting major damage. I think Tim Knott, the 41, probably has the most damage out of those cars involved. Still trying to see if we can get that replay for you. Unfortunately, unable to. But all 3 of them able to get away with damage but not spinning out. So we stay under green flag conditions. Meanwhile, look at James Lorello. Oh, getting tight with the 55 of Yazik. And those 2 cars super, super tight between them. I thought that was going to be the first caution of the race, but they luckily stayed off of one another. Yazik still holding on to now the 8th position. Lorello in 9th, but Lorello wants that position. They closed in on AJ Digby and Michael Krobach, who were battling for the 6th position in front of them. And like I said, Greg, with the 55 and the number 3 have both saved their tires pretty well, and now they're marching towards the front.
And we talked, Peter, about Craig Sykes and the good runs he's had. Brian Yazik is right there in that same category of drivers who we think may be overdue for a victory in the Hacksaw PC's Premier Series. Brian Yazik has been knocking on that door quite a few times as well. He's up 10 starting positions from where he started. He started 18th. He's cracked the top 10 now in 8th, going after his teammate in the 72 right now. Good run out of Brian Yazik once again as we take a look at the 2nd and 3rd place Will Worsler Racing teammates of Worsler and Seville. Here you see back here Yazik, the 55, feeling the heat again from James Lorello in the 3, who also has had a few good runs over the last few races, Peter. So 2 drivers right there side by side who have really pieced together some good runs over the last few weeks or so, as Krobach to the inside now of AJ Digby. And you talk about drivers who have impressed with limited starts. How about that 14 of Digby?
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, it looked like he was on a tear to possibly take the win with the way his first 3 starts were 8th, 5th, and 3rd for AJ Digby in his first 3 starts here in this series. Of course, Indianapolis, he finished outside of the top 10 last week, but this week, once again, having a good run in that machine just outside of the top 5. We see the number 33 of Tony Shelman come down pit road. Remember, they do have 1 extra set of tires this week to use, and we're going to see some of those drivers out there, much like we did a couple weeks back at Chicagoland, Greg, where some cars came down pit road early, and we had all these cars on different strategies, and it was crazy out there on the racetrack. Remember, we had some cars about 2.5 to 3 seconds slower than others. Current lap times last time by for your race leader was actually looks like a 32.9. That's 2.2 seconds slower than his fastest lap in the race. So Craig Stykes in the number 57 machine, definitely a lot of fallout here as we close in on the halfway distance. And Greg, I'm starting to think this race has that caution-free feel to it, and you have to remember the pit window is about 63 to 65 laps. Some of these drivers might be able to stretch it to 67, and if they can stretch it, they can make this race on only 1 stop.
How crazy would that be, Peter? But you mentioned this race having kind of that feeling to it, but these drivers are just getting more and more loose. So if we're going to see that happen, it would happen sometime in the next few laps during green flag pit stops, as drivers are really starting to fight these cars, and your leader is slowing down for pit road, and he's going to bring Bossman with him and Tyler Seville, the top 3 pitting now. So race leaders all on pit road. Craig Stykes surrenders the lead. Woody Mahan, the first car to stay out, will inherit the race lead. So the first driver not named Greg Evans or Craig Stykes to lead the race is the 84 of Woody Mahan as your top 3 on pit road.
Yeah, we have AJ Digby as well on pit road with James Lorello, Jimmy McKee, Michael Whiting also coming down pit road. James Lorello overshot his pit box just a smidgen in the number 3 Glassdoor Brewing machine, so he had to back up. That is going to hurt his pit road time as you see Woody Mahan continue out there on the racetrack. We'll see whether or not he has decided to come down pit road this time or not. But Woody Mahan might be playing the long game here. Will he try and make it to lap number 67? Is he going to try the one-stop strategy? Only time will tell. Like we've been saying, it's about 2.2 seconds a lap that you lose on the older tires. So Woody Mahan here definitely still staying out, not coming down pit road this time, as we're now just about 20 laps away from the halfway distance. Meanwhile, because of this pit sequence, we're now down to only 5 or 6 cars on the lead lap. Woody Mahan, Michael Krobach, Brian Yazik, Alan Young, Chris Hughes, and John Van Varellis are those 6 cars. And coincidentally, Pete Baskin's the only other driver in the number 27 machine who has not come down pit road, but he is currently being scored 1 lap down in that number 27 machine. There he is at the MLC Racing Channel Ford, working its way around the racetrack. There is the number 6 of Jared Haggerty, who is the first car, Greg, who has already come down pit road, but he pitted 10 laps ago. Compare that to Will Warser, Craig Stikes and company that only pitted 2 laps ago. Oh man, was that some car in the inside wall? That it is. That is the 27 Pete Baskins in the inside retaining wall. Let's see what happened here on this replay here, Greg. I didn't quite see it. I was watching a different screen, but coming out of turn number 2, looks like he just got into the outside wall, almost came down into the path of Krobach. That could have ended disastrously, but luckily he was able to scoot across the racetrack without any other cars in.
Who was that squeak through there? We'll take another look at it. Pete Baskins has made it back to pit road. Watch behind him. Who is this that squeaks by? Was that Craig Stikes that got through that?
It was indeed.
And Craig Stikes has to be thanking his lucky stars right now. Brian Yazik is pitting now, as is Michael Krobach. So second and third, and the race leader, Woody Mahan, all come in here on lap number 50. So that will move Alan Young to the race lead here, Peter, as now the 24 out front is again the top 3 pit, and Alan Young 4.4 seconds over Chris Hughes now. I believe those are the only 2 cars left that have not yet pitted.
And some of the people in the chat might be scratching their heads. Well, why did those few cars decide to stay out a little bit later? Well, remember what we've had here, folks, in the last few weeks in the American Sim Racing Series Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series. We've seen a lot of late race cautions. And if you can kind of save the freshness of your tires towards the end of the race, you might end up with fresher tires at the end, and you might be able to pass a lot of cars very, very quickly. We've seen tire strategy be very important this season because this series does limit the number of tires you use. And it leads to some different strategies, and we've seen some drivers, like the number 1 machine of Jason Stewart, almost take the win at Charlotte Motor Speedway due to different strategies. But it's been really interesting to see. But right now, Chris Hughes in the number 22 machine was briefly your race leader. There he is. He's going to be the last car to come down pit road, and that is going to actually hand the lead back to the number 57 of Craig Stikes as he blasts down the front stretch right there. He has a lead, quite a nice lead, in fact, over the number 6 machine of Jared Haggerty, about 2.4 seconds. And then it's another 2.5 seconds or so back to the 3rd place machine of Will Worsler. And I got to say, Greg, very impressive by the number 57 machine to get that car on pit road and get him out oh so quick to extend this lead over Haggerty to 3 seconds. But remember, Haggerty pitted 8 laps sooner, but Will Worsler, who pitted at the same time, 5 seconds back. So Sykes here presumably will have a monstrous lead, as I believe Worsler, Seville, and company will be able to close in on the older tires of Haggerty, but very, very impressive.
And remember, Peter, the margin was only a couple tenths of a second when they came down pit road. So Sykes was so much quicker on pit road than both Worsler and Seville that he was able to get out there way ahead of them, as they now have work to do to try to get up there to Jared Haggerty to get around him. Greg Evans right behind them as well in the number 2. So Craig Sykes was just that much quicker on pit road than the rest of them. And this has been a very solid performance out of that number 57 so far. Nikki Worsler in the chat said she thought this was Craig Sykes' night, and it is definitely looking like it right now. He has led since lap number 3, with the exception of the pit stop cycle, and now he's got a 5-second lead over the rest of the field. That number 57 is looking for redemption today after the last few weeks, and it is looking very, very strong as Will Forster, Seville, and Evans have all gotten around the 6 of Jared Haggerty, so move the top 4 back to what it was before the pit stops. But man, oh man, they are 5 seconds back now of Craig Sykes, and they're on the same exact amount of tires because they all pitted on the same lap. So Craig Sykes, he must have got in and out of pit road very, very quickly.
Now, I'm sure a lot of people in the chat are thinking, well, what about Woody Mahan in that number 84 machine? Where is he? He stayed out really late. He's currently being scored in 13th. Now, he is one of the fastest cars out there on the racetrack right now with his teammate Michael Krobot. So I'm sure Woody Mahan will continue to work his way through the field with his fresher tires, but currently 13. Oh, we have a car around Jay Crable in the number 87 machine, and caution flag has come out here at the Kentucky Speedway, and that is a tough break for Jay. We saw him in the chat prior to the race saying, I know I'm going to hit the wall at some point. Well, unfortunately, it happened right here. It looks like the number 1 machine of Jason Stewart was to his outside. Not quite sure if he knew he was there or not. We'll have to see if we can go back and catch that replay here on 3Wide TV one more time. I don't know if he knew he was there or not, Greg, because it looked like he might have just washed up the racetrack a little bit.
Yeah, he came up, and unfortunately, Stewart was right there. One more look, and we go on board the Glassdoor Brewing War Turtle Racing Chevy, and just like that, in the blink of an eye, your day goes from solid to bad. And Jay Crable, caution is out here on lap number 56 was the time of the caution. So Peter, the no caution bounty goes another week here as Jake Crable and Jason Stewart get together. And if the races don't make it caution free through the rest of the season, do we get the bounty at the end? We split it between the two of us?
I think that's a good idea. I tell you, that's a good idea.
Our producer Carlos is like, yeah, we do, as a matter of fact. So hopefully that is indeed the case. And if that's the case, bring on the yellow flag. Yeah, the 3 of us will split it. As Carlos reminds me, hey, I'm in this too. Craig Sykes, the race leader on pit road. And kind of a mixed bag, Peter.
That's what I was going to
say. Some guys
say.
on pit road, some guys not.
Yeah, that's definitely what I was going to say, because we have drivers like Haggerty, Digby, Schoen, Giese, Jersky all staying out. Evans, Stykes, Seville, Worcester, Haight, Hughes, Lorello, and company on pit road, currently scoring the top 13 cars as staying out. That includes drivers like Woody Mahan, Michael Krobach, Brian Yazik, who only had about 6 laps of green flag running on their tires. It's going to be interesting to see how they compare against a couple of these other drivers who are electing to come down and take on tires and fuel. Remember, the fuel window for the final pit stop is not quite open yet. We're not quite in that window. We need probably about another 9 to 10 laps or so before we are sure that the drivers can make it all the way to the end. But definitely a mixed bag. Some drivers here electing to save a set of tires possibly for the end of the race. Jim Foose in the chat saying they have the ability to change tires 3 times in this event. So they have 4 sets of tires. The tires they start on, the first change, the second change, and finally the third change. And I don't know, Greg, it's going to be interesting to see, because some of these drivers now, as we're not even to the halfway mark, are presumably on their 3rd set of tires. Could work out for them, but might not. We'll have to wait and see. That's the fun of the tire strategy.
Well, the one thing I'm kind of scratching my head on is the guy who's being scored in the race lead right now, Jared Haggerty in the number 6. He was the first car down pit road about 10 laps before the rest of the leaders at time of caution. He stayed out to inherit the race lead. So I figured if anyone was going to come to pit road, it might be that number 6 because of how old his tires were compared to the rest of them. Yet here he is staying out, leading the race. So he's going to be the control car on this restart. But I thought for sure if anyone was going to pit, it might be that number 6. And he stayed out, so he will be the race leader when we go back green. An interesting call by the 6 car of Haggerty here.
Yeah, I agree. It is going to be an interesting call. We'll have to see how it works out. Of course, now the field is going to be kind of pushed back together. It does look like we're going to have 26 cars back on the lead lap when we go back to the green flag racing here. John Jenkins, well, he's still many laps down, folks, but he was able to get one of his laps back because he hadn't yet come back to pit road from when he had his connection issues. So that's good news for the number 7 super clean, tough-tastic greaser and cleaner machine. But he still has a long way to get back in it. We'd have to have a lot of cautions for that number 7 machine to get back on the lead lap. Don't think that's going to happen, but good job to John Jenkins for toughing it out so far and trying to pick up as many spots as he can. Since he came onto the racetrack, he has picked up 1 spot from the number 86 machine. Did get word from Todd Kirkwood that he thinks that his steering wheel, perhaps his hardware, might have failed. So hopefully that's not the case, Todd, and hopefully we can have you back on the racetrack here soon in the American Sim Racing Series Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series. But we're halfway in the Slyce Pizza Bar Bluegrass 200 just about. Why don't we play a quick commercial from some of the series sponsors? We'll be right back here on 3White TV.
Every day in business starts with a number. Output, productivity, efficiency, all measured in numbers, because data drives decisions. And if fire or water damage strikes, the numbers for your business can slow or even stop. Unless you know this one, 1-800-SERVPRO, the number 1 choice in commercial cleanup and restoration.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Slyce Pizza Bar Bluegrass 200 here on 3White TV, American Sim Racing Series Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series. The number 6 machine, Jared Haggerty, your current race leader, did not come down pit road. Alongside him, the number 14 of AJ Digby. In fact, the top 12 cars stayed out there on the racetrack, so all the way between Jared Haggerty and Alan Young. Let's reset the field for you. Haggerty, Digby, Tony Schoen in 3rd, Alex Giese 4th, Adam Jersky 5th, Jimmy McKee 6th, Woody Mahon 7th, Michael Krobach, Brian Yazek, Michael Whiting, Richard Stallings, Alan Young. Those are all the cars who did not come down pit road. Then Stikes, Worsler, Seville, Evans, Lorello, and Haight together. Bouchard, Chris Hughes, John Van Varellis, Tim Knott down in 22nd, Sam Crow, Jay Crable, J.R. Bash, and Jason Stewart are all 26 cars on the lead lap. The pace truck here diving now down onto pit road. We're 5 laps away from the halfway mark this time by. Who will lead at the halfway distance? We will have to wait and see, as Jared Haggerty already on the loud pedal in the Cheerwine number 6 machine, back in the series and back out front here at Kentucky Speedway. AJ Digby in the number 14 machine. He is in the 2nd position, but being challenged for that spot by Tony Schoen in the number 33 Star Building Systems Chevrolet on the inside. Digby on the high side, still battling out, but we're going to have to keep an eye on Craig Stikes in the number 57 machine. Fresh tires on that race car. We've seen how quick the drop-off is with these cars. It goes 3 wide, contact with a 44. Oh, who was that? That was Michael Whiting in that machine. Tried to put the number 57 between those 2 cars in front of him of Stallings and Whiting. And watch this. This was almost the 2nd caution of the night. Oh, man, great job by Michael Whiting in the Brookside Equipment Sales machine to save that race car and save the 11th position, at least for now. But Will Worthler in the number 29 machine will take the highest spot of drivers on fresh tires. We have a huge stack up for the race lead. Look at this. 4 wide, coming out of turn number 4. Geesey on the inside. Look at Digby splitting up through the middle. Showen's going to back out of it. The 6 of Haggerty on the high side. 3 wide for the race lead. How about that?
Digby led the lap. We're not done yet. This is a hornet's nest up front. This is all going for the race lead. Geesey to the inside now. Digby going for the race lead. Mahan up there in third, trying to get back up there. Jimmy McKee taking a peek on the inside there. Brian Yazik as well. Oh boy, things got real hairy there for the race lead. Digby getting a good run on the outside, has help from behind from Woody Mahan. They're still battling out. Here comes Will Worcester trying to creep up into the picture. His driver, AJ Digby, leading the way right now, has led 2 laps now. But Woody Mahan to the inside. Digby shuts the door. Things really beginning to heat up. Caution.
Caution flag is out, and it's unfortunately the number 33 of Tony Schoen, who is backwards in turn number 1 and 2 right there. There might have been a little bit of contact with the number 6 of Jared Haggerty, because your race leader just a few laps ago is now missing a front end. You see kind of the back half of that accident, and those 2 cars, unfortunately, both getting some heavy damage. Let's see if we can see what happened here going off into turn number 1, and ooh, that was just coming together there, Greg. Kind of similar to what we saw that brought out the first caution of the night. Just kind of 2 cars coming together out there on the racetrack going for the same spot. Unfortunately, Michael Whiting in the number 44 machine, we saw him make a huge save just a minute ago. He got a piece of this accident, and on board with the number 33 machine had the number 1, excuse me, not the number 1, the number 6 machine to his outside, and just going for the same spot on the racetrack. And just like that, caution number 2 of the night right at the halfway mark. And it does look like AJ Digby will lead the halfway lap, but will he come down pit road? Now we have a couple of cars behind him, like Will Worsler, who's in 7th, first car on the fresher tires. But Will Worsler, yeah, still a couple of spots to get up to the number 14 machine. He kind of fakes going down pit road there. Didn't expect to see him on pit road. Meanwhile, we got the 44 and the 6 coming down, the 17 coming down. So the top 6 cars here still going to stay out. They've only made 1 pit stop here, your top 6. Meanwhile, Will Worsler in the 29, he's made 2 pit stops. Jersky in 8th, he's made only 1 stop here so far. So in your top 10, pretty much, I think 7 of the top 10 have only made 1 stop in this race. Meanwhile, 3 have made 2. So definitely, as these cautions continue to fly, Greg, you're starting to think maybe a little bit of an advantage to some of these drivers who like to stay out under the last caution, as you see Richard Fletcher get the lucky dog.
Fletcher getting the lucky dog. So drivers might be, like you mentioned there, Peter, beginning to think about the long haul, trying to set themselves up for that run to the finish as we work our second caution of the day. And I want to talk for a second about the 57 of Craig Stykes, up to 9th right now, but how much damage did he get in that little thing earlier with the 22 and the 17? He looks like the right front might be crinkled a little bit on that number 57 car. So could the fastest car in town, which is that 57 of Stykes, be in trouble moving forward here?
I don't know. It's, you know, there's a long way to go, but definitely, you know, we'll have to find out. It's going to be interesting to see also how these strategies play out throughout this race. I mean, that's been one of the things that's really kept me on my toes all season long here in the American Sim Racing Series. And I think back to the race that we had last year. I think it was actually one of the development races around the turn of the year, where it was one of those first races where they decided to do the tire limits, and it was at Chicagoland Speedway. We did broadcast it here on 3Y TV. I think it's kind of a test of our new systems, and that race was so much fun to watch, to see the tire strategies play out. And couldn't really call it to the end, and really that's been all season long on 3Y TV. Some very exciting races. We saw it last week in Indianapolis. If you did not see that race, round 6 of the Surf Pro Wheelman Showdown, go back and check it out, because that race was superb, Greg, and we're setting ourselves up for another good one here tonight.
We definitely are, Peter. Another fantastic race here tonight at Kentucky. The ASRS Hacksaw PC Premier Series has been putting on so many great shows over the course of the season, and just another great one here tonight. And definitely that first caution with all the mixed bags on pit road definitely threw a monkey wrench into how this race was going. So this race has suddenly been turned on its lid to see how this race unfolds for the second half, as we're a little bit past halfway here. AJ Digby leading the way, Woody Mahan second, Alex Giese third. Then you've got the HPP simulations forwards of Yazik and Krobach rounding out the top five. It has definitely been a fun one here so far at Kentucky, and we were excited about this race leading up to this because we were excited to see how these guys tackle the new surface here at Kentucky, and it has definitely lived up to expectations. It has been a lot of fun watching this race here unfold.
Absolutely. The only thing that's not all too exciting is the pace truck lights continue to be on here at Kentucky, which is a bit of a surprise that we have kind of an extended caution here. But why don't we step away for just a brief moment, play a few quick commercials, and we'll be right back here on Three-Way TV.
Life happens everywhere. Like it never even happened, only happens here. The cleanup and restoration specialists at 1-800-SERVPRO and ServPro.com.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real-world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Kentucky Speedway for tonight's broadcast of the Slyce Pizza Bar Bluegrass 200. Just over halfway in this one, and of course, want to give a shout out to one of the series sponsors, ServPro, and of course, Slyce Pizza Bar for sponsoring tonight's race. Also, want to give a shout out to American Regardless. It's a clothing store. You can go check them out on Google, and if you use the code ASRS at checkout, you do get a discount on some of their clothing. So make sure you use ASRS, all lowercase, at checkout at American Regardless. And I'll tell you what, it's all American-made stuff put together by veterans of the United States Armed Forces. Go check it out. Great clothing. I got hats and some cool T-shirts. And I'll tell you what, definitely a great sponsor of the American Sim Racing Series Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series. Can't forget Hacksaw PC's being the title sponsor this season. Go check them out for all of your computer needs. The winner of the championship gets their own tricked-out computer, which of course is always something you need here in the sim racing world. You also need green flags in the sim racing world. Not quite sure if we ever found the flagman, folks. Looks like we didn't, as we still got virtual green flags here, but nonetheless, AJ Digby out to a huge lead as they run off into turn number 1 over the 77 of Alex Giese. And I'm keeping my eye on Will Worcester. Remember, he's got fresher tires than most of the cars in front of him, trying to make his way up towards AJ Digby and that Slyce Pizza Bar, number 29 machine, digging on the inside. And Greg, we have to remember that Will Worcester last week had a second place finish at Indianapolis. We see a little bit of connection issues out of the 77 machine of Alex Giese. And I'll tell you what, one thing you don't want to be with a blinking car around you is have that car 3 wide in the middle of the other cars around you. And that's what Michael Krobach and Woody Mahan were thinking about doing. And with the blinking number 77 machine, we have to think about the new rule that was implemented today. Today in the American Sim Racing Series driver chat, these drivers were told that they have a blink count now. And there is some software that counts the number of times a car is blinked. When it gets to 20, they get a verbal warning that goes all the way up to 80. Once they have 80 blinks in a single race, that is it. That is a black flag. That is a disqualification. And the 77 of Giese is now being told to drop to the back of the pack because he has reached a 40 blink count. And if he continues to blink like that, he will be shown the black flag and will be removed from the race. But meanwhile, Woody Mahan up at the front, as I've been explaining that, has taken himself up to the front once again with Brian Yazik and Michael Krobach behind him. And I'll tell you what, Greg, we have to remember that Woody Mahan, Yazik, and Krobach didn't have all too many laps on their tires when we had that caution flag come out, where a bunch of the other cars came down pit road. So there you can see it on the left-hand side of your screen. Woody Mahan, Yazik, and Krobach, 24 laps on their tires. Meanwhile, drivers like Craig Slyce, who's just going to blow around the outside of Michael Krobach, he only has about 16 laps on his tires. But Craig Sykes isn't settling for third. He wants more here, Greg.
Craig Sykes wants the lead back in that number 57. He's on the outside of Yazik for the second spot. On the outside off of turn 2. He's got the nose in front, not cleared just yet as his drag races down. Yazik going to give him the spot. Craig Sykes back to second. He was the fastest car first half of the race, trying to get back up to Woody Mahan with a little bit less on his tires. His boss, Will Wursler, he's coming up as well. He's catching up to the HPP cars. And how about that 50 car, Peter Short? He is up to 6th after starting 29th, not qualifying. Chris Bouchard in the top 10, trying to crack the top 5 now.
Yeah, and while we were talking about that, Craig Sykes has got around Woody Mahan, and he is back out front here in the Slyce Pizza Bar Bluegrass 200. Has Slyce Pizza Bar on the hood of that number 57 machine right there. Got Porcupines on the quarter panels as well. Great sponsors for Will Wursler Racing, sponsoring each and every one of their cars. And there you see Bouchard and Yazik doing battle, going back to Bouchard. He's now cracked the top 5 with this pass on the 55 of Yazik, assuming he can complete it here coming out of turn number 2. Yes, he does. And like you mentioned, that's super impressive. He started 29th, 24 spots gained here now that we're in the second half of the race. And we have seen some great runs out of Bouchard this year. I mean, I'm thinking back to Texas Motor Speedway. I'm thinking back to Martinsville. Just hasn't quite had the consistency over the last few weeks to be up near the front, but definitely showing he has a lot of pace here tonight.
Definitely, Peter, over the last few weeks showing a lot of pace. But how about Craig Sykes in that number 57, already pulling 0.6 of a second ahead as bossman Will Wursler, big dive into turn number 3. Will Wursler went full send there in turn 3 to get around the 72. That's for the 3rd spot, as Greg Evans is also beginning to creep back up into the picture. We haven't talked about him since he fell back to 5th earlier in the day. He is now up to 6th, trying to get around Bouchard. So the pole sitter, most wins on the season, he's trying to get back up there.
Absolutely. And, you know, one thing that we saw, we talked about this actually when we were under caution a couple times ago when we were under the commercial break, was that after about 20 laps on the tires, 20 green flag laps on the tires, that is, the lap times start to settle down. They start to even out across the field. So I think we'll start to see the lap times up at the front start to level out. And some of the drivers up there are probably starting to think about that as we see some 3 wide Beef Jerski's Cheesecakes machine. Adam Jersky there in the middle, AJ Digby on the high side, and Digby in that number 14 machine. Their strategy hasn't quite worked out for him as he slid back to the 15th position in that number 14 machine. Continues to lose spot. Remember, he's one of those drivers who elected not to come down pit road when a lot of the other drivers like Craig Sykes did a little while back. There's the number 1 machine of Jason Stewart. And Greg, I'm very impressed with that number 1 machine right now, because remember, he had a ton of front end damage on that race car. He's made 4 pit stops in this race, more than any other driver in the field. The only other driver who's close is Richard Stallings with 3. But definitely he's got a lot of that damage repaired, and he's started to make his way now towards the top 10. Very impressed there, as we have had a pass for the 2nd position. But Woody Mahan wants to take it back from Will Wursler at the stripe. It was Wursler by inches. And now Mahan trying to close him off into turn number 1. Unable to do so. Wursler now around the outside. But this is some great racing up towards the front, because Greg, I think we're starting to see those tires kind of level off like we saw under that long green flag run that we had to start the race.
Yeah, we're starting to see that now with the tires for sure. Has Mahan on the outside of Mahan. That was great camera work there by our 3Y production crew, but Worsler finally able to clear Mahan, and here comes Bouchard inside as well. He's trying to crack the top 3 and does relatively easily. Great run out of the 50 of Bouchard, as well as he is making his way up through the field. You got Greg Evans in the 2, hanging back there, back in 5th, highest he's been in quite some time in this race. Then you got this battle here between Tyler Seville, Michael Krobach, and James Lorello. 3 guys who have had very solid runs throughout the course of the day. Troy Haight back up into the 9th position looking for more. Remember, early in the race, he was falling down outside the top 20, and he has climbed back into the top 10. So Troy Haight, a nice recovery in the P&N water filter Chevy.
Yeah, and I misspoke just a little bit ago because I said that there was only one driver to have made 3 pit stops. Well, that's not true. We actually have quite a few drivers who've made 3 pit stops towards the back half of the field, but one of those drivers who has made 3 pit stops is Troy Haight. So definitely he's starting to make his way forward. He looks like he came down pit road 18 laps ago, so he's probably got the freshest tires out of this front bunch in that number 28 machine, and he's starting to use those fresh tires to make passes as he continues to close in on the cars in front of him. Meanwhile, Christopher Bouchard in the number 50 machine just took the 2nd spot away from Will Worcester in the number 29 machine, giving him a little bit of a weave down the backstretch, blocking the number 29 machine. But Will Worcester says, "Are you going to do that to me? I'm just going to go around the high side." And Worcester trying to get that spot back. But Greg, that is allowing Craig Sykes up at the front to scoot away just a little bit because of this side-by-side action behind him.
And look at this great camera shot of Will Worcester as you see Bouchard say hello on the inside. I love this new camera that we've got over the last couple of weeks. Now we go on the hood of the number 29 as Bouchard able to clear Chris Bouchard up to 2nd now. He did not take a qualifying lap, started on a provisional and is up to 2nd, but he has a long way to go now to try to reel in Craig Sykes as you see the freight train behind him now beginning to fan out. There is Tyler Seville in the 11. We'll see what the gap is this time. 1 second the gap between Sykes and Bouchard. Sykes all by himself. There you see him leading the way. He has led far and away the most laps in this race. There you see the gap. And Peter, Nikki Worcester said in the chat earlier she thought tonight might be the night Craig Sykes breaks it, and here he is leading the way once again late in the race. 2 very good runs out of that 57 over the last 2 starts. Hasn't had the luck that he needed, but here he is leading the race again late, looking very solid in that number 57.
I think the biggest question, though, is when are we going to see some of the other cars who didn't come down pit road actually make it down pit road? Drivers like Woody Mahan, who's done a fantastic job to stay up there inside the top 10. He's lost the 5th position to Tyler Seville. He's now being hounded by James Lorello, but Mahan's done a fantastic job. But as I say that, Mahan got a little bit of a nudge going off into turn number 3 by James Lorello, pushes him up the racetrack, opens up the bottom groove for Lorello. A little bit of bumping right here on entry into the corner. You see this from high atop our helicopter cam. Fantastic job there by Woody Mahan to save that race car and keep that race car going straight. Because I'll tell you what, that could have been another caution there, Greg. But they're still getting close out there on the racetrack.
Yes, they definitely are, Peter. As Lorello and Mahan getting side by side here through this one. Troy Haight coming up now in the 28, trying to get up there. Remember, he finished runner-up at Dover a few weeks ago, trying to get a run on James Lorello now as we go back on board. Race leader Craig Sykes in the number 57, looking out back the window. Chris Bouchard has shaved a few tenths of a second off. It's now 7/10 of a second back to the number 50. So Craig Sykes leading the way. Remember, these guys will still need to make one more pit stop to make it to the end of this one. But Chris Bouchard showing that he has a lot of speed in that number 50 car moving forward here for the rest of this race.
I'll tell you what, the James Lorello-Woody Mahan battle is still red hot because the number 84 got another little bump in turn number 3 and 4 last time. I think Lorello trying to do all he can to get around this number 84. I think he thinks he's faster than him, just unable to get the pass stuck here. As we continue to stay green, now 43 laps to go. It has been 33 laps since your race leader Craig Sykes was in pit road, but for drivers like Yazik, Woody Mahan and company, it has been over 40 laps. You can see it on the left-hand side of your screen. 42 laps since those drivers were on pit road. They're doing a fantastic job with those older tires to hold on to this lead pack. I'm sure they've struggled a little bit and they've lost a little bit of track position, but you have to remember, folks, they're saving an extra set of tires for the end of the race. A fresh set of tires, if we have some caution flags, could pay dividends for them, especially with the tire fall off around this 1.5-mile racetrack. That is one of the reasons why they got an extra set of Goodyear tires this week. It's just how abrasive this racetrack is, and we've seen it, Greg, in the past few weeks. Cautions at the end of the races.
Yeah, we've seen it over the last few races. Long green flag runs that lead to cautions late in the race when the cautions breed cautions starts happening, as Bouchard trying to reel in Sykes here for the race lead. Will Worsler right there tucked in on his back bumper trying to get the draft off him. There you see Sykes crossing the line. Another lap led for the 57 of Sykes. Yazik on pit road.
Yeah, we also had the number 14 machine of AJ Digby also make a pit stop about 1.5 laps ago as well. There he is out there on the racetrack, currently being scored 1 lap down, but as you can see, just blowing past the number 44 of Michael Whiting on those fresh tires. So now cars starting to head down pit road. Your race leaders only have 1 set of tires left, and whoa, look at Digby catch up to the number 27 machine, and oh no, Digby, a little bit of contact there, and Digby into the inside wall. A little bit of damage on that race car. We'll have to see, possibly, while we have all these other cars coming down pit road. Curious to see, maybe we can get a look back at Digby's incident there. I'm not quite sure if he just got loose or if there was a little bit of contact or what happened to that number 14 machine, because that is a tough break. He did have Pete Baskins really, really tight, and looks like he just got loose in that number 14 machine. Not too much damage on that race car, though. I'm sure he wasn't all too excited, though, to make contact with the left-hand side of his car, because that will be a little bit of damage on that
second
car.
Place on pit road, Peter. Chris Bouchard, Will Worsler came down as well, so a couple of drivers that were up in the top 5 on pit road now getting their final stops. Craig Sykes, the race leader, still out there, but we had 2nd, 3rd, and 4th all come in on pit road that last time by. Moving Greg Evans up in the 2nd now, 1.4 seconds back of Craig Sykes, as he's got Tyler Seville, Sykes' teammate, behind him. But a couple of cars up near the front have pulled on the pit road for their final service.
So now it's going to be interesting, because we're seeing some cars come down and use their final set of Goodyear tires on pit road. Drivers like the 55 of Yazik, Woody Mahan, and the number 84 machine, they still have a fresh set of tires still sitting on pit road. They haven't used their final set. But now is going to be the question mark. When will we see the final caution of this race? When will they be able to cash in on those last set of tires? Will they be able to cash in on that last set of tires? They have played their strategy well. These leaders have played their strategy well. It's just a matter of time to figure out how it all goes down here at Kansas Speedway. Let's see if we can go on board with the number 55 machine of Brian Yazik, as Craig Sykes is headed down pit road, your race leader. Just watch how fast he's catching some of these drivers who are on older tires. He's just picking them up and laying them down. Here he goes to the outside of Sam Crow in the number 5 machine. I'm sure he's going to make this pass look easy, but I'll tell you what, Greg, he's just been using the high line, because all the other cars that are a little bit slower down there on the inside group, Yazik just passing them, making it look easy on those fresh tires.
Yeah, you see it right there, the difference, fresh tires against old tires, as race leader Craig Sykes gets the right sides changed. They go over to the left sides. Greg Evans still out there and is staying out once again, and we've seen it out of him before. He knows how to stretch it and make it work. Tyler Seville pits from 2nd to come down into number 11. Another great run out of Tyler Seville. Looking back now at the Freightliner Chevy of Greg Evans, leading the way right now, trying to make the moves and make it stick, as he's going to stay out there once again as he comes up on Jared Haggerty to put him a lap down. Haggerty has done a nice job up until now staying on the lead lap with that damaged Cheerwine Toyota, as Evans finally puts him a lap down. But Peter, how long before you think Greg Evans pulls in here?
He might think about playing the long game here, Greg, because you have to go back to the thought about the tire situation. He might want to save that fresh set of tires for as long as he can, so if he catches a caution, he would be able to come down pit road. We're seeing just how chaotic this racetrack is right now, with a bunch of cars on fresh tires and a bunch of cars on old tires, not really gelling well with one another right now. We're seeing a lot of cars have to make some huge dives to the inside of the racetrack or the outside of the racetrack. We saw that there with the number 24 machine of Alan Young. We saw Craig Sykes down there below the apron going through the middle of the tri-oval. We're seeing some crazy action right now out there on the racetrack. And if two cars have it coming together like we have seen already once here tonight, well, I've been saying all that. Here comes Greg Evans to throw that out of the window. Now, that is going to give the lead over to the number 28 of Troy Haight. Now, he had less laps on his tires than some of the cars around him, so he presumably can go a little bit further than the other cars. Now, the big question is, when are some of these cars going to unlap themselves from the number 28 of Troy Haight? In fact, a lot of cars are already unlapping themselves from the number 28 of Troy Haight. So he still has track position because he is still the race leader, but if a caution was to come out, you'd assume he'd come down and get his final set of tires, and it could play out to his advantage, especially if we were to get one here in the next probably 5 to 10 laps or so, Greg, because think about that. The 28 would come down pit road, presumably as the race leader, put on his final set of tires, and he would be the race leader. He'd have all that track position. I think if your drivers like Haight, Crable, Stewart, Stallings, you don't have anything to gain right now coming down pit road. If you want to throw the dice, stay out there on the racetrack, and maybe you can get that caution that will allow you to put on a fresh set of tires with that good track position.
We know Jason Stewart is not afraid to roll the dice. Thinking back to the big race at Charlotte last month, where he rolled the dice and made it work and finished up in the top 5. We know he is not afraid to take a gamble, as he's now losing ground to all these drivers who are trying to unlap themselves. The next car for position, you saw him back there, that blue and black and yellow number 17 of Richard Stallings. That will be for the third position, which is coming up now. You see him looking out at the mirror. Sam Crow in fifth, about a second behind them. He's coming on the pit road now. So Sam Crow in the number 5 will surrender the 5th position to pit. So that will leave the 28, 87, the 1, and the 17, I believe, as drivers who have yet to pit. And I believe we can also add Tim Nutt to that category as well.
Looking at the live timing and scoring, it looks like the number 50 of Christopher Bouchard would come out as the race leader if all of the cars in front of him were to come down and make their final pit stop. He has a small advantage over the number 55 of Brian Yazik, who is over Will Worsler. But behind Worsler is Craig Stykes in the number 57 machine, who was the race leader. And Craig Stykes looks like he's just going to blow by the number 29 machine, but a caution flag is out here, and that's going to change everything. Michael Krobach and the number 44 machine of Michael Whiting turned around on the backstretch, and this changes everything. Greg.
The long slide out of Krobach and Whiting there. It was contact between them, and I saw, I believe, one of the War Turtle cars behind them. Or was that Woody Mahan in the 84? Who was that behind them there?
It was Woody Mahan. Yeah, and it looks like Michael
Mahan did a great job getting through that, but Whiting caught the wall and just bounced right down into Krobach.
Yeah, he got a little bit of a tank slapper. He clipped the outside wall, just kind of bounced off of it, and boinkity boink, and just spun him right around. I gotta say, fantastic job by Woody Mahan to avoid that, although there might be a little bit of damage on the number 84 machine, just a little bit. In fact, it doesn't look like there's all too much damage on Michael Krobach's number 72 machine, so they might come out of this okay. But remember, their strategy was to have an extra set of tires on pit road. I don't know if that's going to work out for them now with how this all plays out, especially with them getting a little bit of damage on board with Woody Mahan. You can just see that right front caught the rear quarter panel of the number 44 machine. So that is how Woody Mahan has a smidgen of damage. Hopefully that doesn't affect him all too much. But now we have drivers who are out there on the racetrack who can come down pit road and get their final set of tires. And I'll tell you what, the driver I'm looking at right now, the first car who I know for sure has a final set of tires is going to be the number 33 machine of Tony Schoen. A couple of the other cars around him, I don't know if they have any sets left because they've been on pit road multiple times. Looks like the 28 of Troy Hay, looks like he had a set left. So that's good news. Remember, he's been on pit road 3 times already. One of those times must have just been to come down and get fuel or damage repaired or whatnot. But this is going to set up an interesting strategy for the end. And Greg, these drivers coming off pit road with fresh tires, they're in the catbird seat, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely, Peter. I'm right there with you. We'll see how much ground they have once it's all said and done. They're going to have about 24, 22 laps, somewhere in that bracket. A little over 20 laps to make their way through the field, and depending on how far up or how far deep in the field they are, they may be able to really make a run here. But you got to keep an eye, of course, on the 57 of Craig Sykes, because he has been far and away the strongest car here tonight, and he looks like he might be restarting up in the third or up in the second spot, Peter. So you got to keep an eye on that, but you have to absolutely keep your eyes on the cars that will be starting deeper in the field. And honestly, it doesn't look like Troy Hayden, the 28, is going to be starting that far back.
Yeah, in fact, let's see if we can possibly talk to that number 28 machine. Here he is in the 3-wide TV chat. You got a copy there, Troy?
I got you.
Well, I'll tell you what, you saved a set of tires here, and you had that track position. I was just saying a couple laps before the caution flag came out, I don't think you had anything to gain coming down pit road with a set of tires still sitting on pit road, kind of throwing the dice, staying out there on the racetrack. What are you thinking now? You think you're in the catbird seat, got pretty good track position considering you just pitted, and a lot of cars in front of you, they have 10 to 15 laps on their tires.
Yeah, got a chance here.
What was going through your mind there to kind of make that call to stay out? I mean, we've seen so much tire wear. Were you just kind of like, you know what, I'm going to try something a little bit different? Or was that kind of your strategy all along?
I really wasn't sure what to do, but I was home for a caution and got it, so see what happens.
All right, well, best of luck here in the closing laps. We'll let you get back to it, but maybe we'll see the P&N water filters thing in victory lane here in just a little bit. Good luck, Troy.
Thanks.
All right, well, we'll move him back to his team. I think that's a fantastic call there by Troy Haight. And, you know, like I was saying, if we get a caution like we have been seeing in the last few races here on 3-wide TV, excuse me, in the sim, it definitely is going to be a huge advantage for Troy Haight.
Absolutely, Peter. And I want to bring some attention back. Remember, early in the race, Haight had some issues on that number 28 car. He fell well outside the top 20 and was about 2 seconds or so slower than the race leader at one point early in this race. Here he is now in 6th on the freshest tires in the field and a shot at a win here with plenty of time to get past these guys in front of him who don't have any tires left. So Troy Haight, masterful recovery out of the number 28. We'll see if he can pull this off. He's going to restart 6th.
Only time will tell here. This is lining up to be a spectacular finish. We're going to have cars on older tires, cars on fresh tires. If you thought the racetrack was crazy just a few laps ago when cars were on different strategies then, it is going to be crazy here in just a little bit as we close in on just 20 laps to go here at Kentucky Speedway. Pace truck lights are still on, so why don't we step away for just a brief moment, and we'll be right back with more action here from Kentucky.
Life happens everywhere. Like it never even happened, only happens here. The cleanup and restoration specialists at 1-800-SERVPRO and servpro.com.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks. fully dynamic, real-world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
All right, everyone, welcome back to Kentucky Speedway for tonight's broadcast of the Slyce Pizza Bar Bluegrass 200 right here on 3Y TV. I'm Peter Shorten. In the booth with me is Greg Rentz, and we have just about 21 laps to go, and the pace truck lights are off, so we're going to get set to go back to green flag action here for the conclusion of tonight's American Sim Racing Hacksaw PC's Cup Series event. And Greg, we've seen a fantastic race out of these drivers here tonight. But I'm going to be keeping my eye on those drivers on the fresher tires like Troy Haight. He's going to be restarting here in the 6th position outside row number 3, P&N water filters on the hood. I think he is in the catbird seat. We've seen a couple of cars a little bit faster than him, but he definitely qualified well. He's shown he's had pace. He's recovered from early race troubles, and we'll find out who will get the checkered flag here in 21 laps time as the green flag back in the air. Christopher Bouchard brought them down very, very slow late. Green flag here by the non-existent flagman here at the start-finish line, but Bouchard jumps out to a good jump. We've seen that a couple times here tonight. Here comes Will Worcester on the inside of the number 57 of Slyce. Slyce, who's led a lot of laps here tonight, but does have 14 laps on his tires compared to some of the cars behind him who have much, much less. We'll have to see how that all plays out. Look at Worcester sliding up the racetrack just a little bit, right there in front of the number 3 machine. And this is some crazy, crazy action. 3 wide already here with just 20 laps to go, and caution flag is in the air.
Caution is out. I believe it might involve the 8. Oh my goodness, look who is on the wrong way on the one-way on pit road. Greg Evans, the pole sitter. 3rd week in a row, something goes sour late for the 2 car. Wow.
Yeah, same thing happened last week at Indianapolis. Same thing happened the week before at Chicagoland. And there you can see some of the contact there. 43 and the 14 having it coming together. That's Richard Fletcher there in the 43. Not quite sure. I saw Digby get involved as well. Let's see if we can go back. Ooh, contact there with the 24 machine. And just like that, the 43 had a tank slapper down the front stretch, and unfortunately collected both John Van Varellis, it looks like, in the 78, and the man who has 6 wins to his name this season, Greg Evans. Definitely hasn't been the night for Greg Evans. Started on the pole, led a couple laps early, and just like that, a lot of front-end damage to that Freightliner Chevrolet, and I'm sure he'll be on pit road to get as much damage repaired as possible here. But again, tonight, not going Evans' way. We've seen that last couple of weeks. Just seems like the cards are against him right now.
Yeah, Greg Evans, so many wins on the season, is snake bit once again here at Kentucky this time. But the guy this is benefiting is that guy on the camera right now, Chris Bouchard. The longer this race stays yellow, the less laps he's going to have to try to hold off the likes of Stikes and Troy Haight. But how about Jason Stewart in the 1 was able to get around Troy Haight on that run before there. He's on the same amount of tires as Haight right now. Jason Stewart in 6th now, trying to get up there. And remember, we said before we went to commercial there that he was a guy that you could keep an eye on as well. He knows how to play the gamble game here. And all of a sudden, he is the first car on those fresh tires.
Yeah, I mean, think back to Charlotte Motor Speedway where Jason Stewart got a fantastic finish in that number 1 machine. And can't forget the fact that he's running a special paint scheme here tonight. If you're just now joining us here on 3Y TV, Jason Stewart is running an all-white paint scheme here tonight. Because a friend of his is battling COVID-19, we send all of our good wishes to that friend. Hopefully everything comes out well. But Jason Stewart running a white paint scheme to kind of bring awareness to that situation, and definitely got to keep that in mind. I'm sure he would love to go to victory lane in that machine tonight, and hopefully all goes well with his friend's recovery and battle through the COVID-19 virus. But yeah, he sits in the 6th position. Richard Stallings sits in 8th. Brian Yazik, how about him in the number 55 HPPsimulation.com machine? We've seen a lot of speed out of him, especially on the long run, but now he's going to have to show some short run speed in that number 55 machine to try and get to the front here. But another thing that's working out for your race leaders is the fact that we're having some long caution flags here tonight. iRacing recently reduced the number of caution laps, Greg, but it seems like they possibly extended the caution laps here at Kentucky Speedway. There have been some very long cautions tonight.
Yeah, definitely have been, Peter. We've been talking about that throughout the course of the night while we're at commercial break with how long the cautions have been here. They are stacked up 2 by 2, so looks like we may be able to go green this time. We'll be taking the green flag on lap 119, so about 15 laps to go or so when this race gets back underway. Bouchard leading, Stikes up to 2nd, has been the strongest car here, but still has to get around that number 50. How about James Arello in the 3? Started 20th, running 3rd right now. Good run for him as well in that number 3.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of good runs from Lorello this season, especially in the first half of the season, I would say. It seems like the last half, he's just had things stacked up against him. Hasn't been able to get a good run in that number 3 Glassdoor Brewing Chevrolet, but definitely showing some muscle here tonight around this mile-and-a-half racetrack. Of course, can't count out Tyler Seville. Comes into tonight's 2nd place in points, 52 markers back of John Jenkins, and Seville looking for win number 2 on the Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series season in that machine. And how about the 5th place driver, Will Worsler? Can't count him out either. He's looking for his 2nd win on the season as well, and that's Slyce Perky Pints machine. Of course, Slyce Pizza Bar is the sponsor of tonight's race, so it'd be kind of cool if the Slyce Pizza Bar machine does end up going to victory lane, but it's still a long way to figure out who will win this battle of Kentucky Speedway, especially with these long cautions that kind of drag out the race just a smidgen. It did look like, though, the number 77 Alex Giese did get back on the lead lap. We currently have 23 race cars on the lead lap as of right now. John Jenkins in the number 7 machine, your points leader. He's been trying to overcome a connection issue that he had. He dropped out of the server. He just made a pass for the 29th position over Michael Whiting. So good job for John Jenkins for really staying in it, sticking to his guns in that number 7 machine, and still trying to pick up as many spots as he can. Unfortunately, the lap count is winding down, and the opportunity for him to make some passes is disappearing. But good job by John Jenkins. I gotta say, Greg, when that happens in the middle of a race and all of a sudden you know you're out of contention for a win, it can sometimes be very disheartening to a race car driver. But Jenkins is thinking about the long game here. He's thinking about the point situation and thinking about the championship at the end of the season. Even though we do have the playoff system, nonetheless, Jenkins wants as many points as he can get to get into that playoff and have the best position as possible.
Yeah, Jenkins definitely doing a good job by sticking it out here. He's going to take a large hit in the points regardless, but with the damage to Greg Evans after being caught up again in another incident, that's going to help minimize that. That's going to work in his favor here as Greg Evans is still on pit road getting repairs, and he's only 2 spots back of Greg Evans, and if the 2 is not able to return, mathematically, the 7 can still make it back out or get around him. So mathematically still possible for the 7 to beat the 2 of Greg Evans here once it's all said and done.
Now, why don't we talk about some of the cars that just came down pit road? Jimmy McKee and the McKee Lawn Care Services number 8 machine. He's down in 16th. He came down pit road under this caution, as did John Van Varellis. I'm sure he had some damage to fix. Adam Jersey in the Jersey's Cheesecakes machine, he came down pit road as well. Chris Hughes in the number 22, another taker on pit road. So it's going to be interesting to see if some of those drivers decided to save a set of tires as well in light of possible late race cautions. We've seen quite a few recently here in the Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series in the last few weeks. So again, another turn possible in tonight's storyline. Meanwhile, up at the front, pace truck lights are off. Number 50 of Christopher Bouchard. Will he lead them down as slow as he did last time? He let them down so slow when that Chevy Silverado pace truck headed down pit road. We'll see if he does that again or whether he goes early this time. Might be playing some games with the field. That's definitely something I do when I'm the race leader at this point of the race. Kind of change up your restart point. He doesn't. He goes and waits until the green flag is dropped by iRacing, but he still gets a pretty darn good jump over that second group of cars. Lorello to the inside of Stokes for second, and then behind them it's 3 wide. Look at Jason Stewart, the number 1 machine, trying to use those fresher tires around the high side. They're 3 wide, a little bit further back now. Look at Mahan in the number 84 machine. There's contact between Seville and the number 1 machine of Jason Stewart halfway down the backstretch. Bouchard has jumped out to a big advantage here early in the run. Look at now Stewart trying to go through the middle between Seville and the number 29 of Will Worcester. They get tight coming off the corner, but they keep it clean. Jason Stewart trying to get up to 4th.
Troy Haight up there as well. You mentioned the good start by Bouchard. I saw the number 1 of Jason Stewart also have a great start right there. Caution is out again.
And it looks like it is the number 5, the 41, and the 72 who have all got together. The 5 of Sam Crow, the 72 of Michael Krobach, and the 41 of Tim Knott. And Tim Knott is smoking up there on board with the 77 of Giese. You see that accident happen in front of him. We'll see if we can get a little bit better angle on this one to see what happened. Oh, there were 3 wide, and oh, there was contact there that turns Sam Crow down into the side of the number 72. Was that possibly Adam Jursky in the middle of that 3 wide situation? It looked like it might have been. Here we go on board with the, ooh, man, that's kind of hard to see from Tim Knott's perspective. But you can see Knott getting thrown up into the outside wall. He's now smoking. That will be day done for that number 41. There we go. This gives us a little bit better picture. Man, once again, 2 cars going for the same spot on the racetrack. Might not have realized that there were still 3 wide there, Greg, and just had it coming together.
Yeah, just the case of possibly just not being fully aware of what was going on behind or around your Peters, and there you see the end results can be 3 torn up race cars, and that's a shame for Krobach in the 72 because he was so strong through the early stages of this race, up in the top 10. Very solid night he was having, and now it is another hit to the wall that ends it. But Chris Bouchard did a good job holding off the 57 of Sykes there on that restart, but Jason Stewart cracked the top 5, but he's going to start on the inside here, Peter, and he tried the outside 3 wide going into turn 1 on that last restart. He's pretty much going to have to do exactly the same thing, but reverse it down to the inside to try to get up here now because he's going to have less than 10 laps to get this done.
It's been kind of hard to call which line has been the best line to start in. I mean, the leader has always chosen the inside groove. The leader does have lane choice here in the American Sim Racing Series Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series, so if the 50 of Bouchard wanted that high line, he could take it if he wanted to. But so far, every leader's taken the inside groove, as you see J.R. Bash be the lucky dog in the number 4 machine. But we definitely see that high groove be strong. We've seen the side-by-side racing behind. We saw, of course, Lorello get to the inside of Sykes there on that restart. But that outside line did prevail. Sykes was able to hold on to that spot. And Tyler Seville and Jason Stewart, Troy Haight, they were all battling for that position. I did think that Jason Stewart was just going to clear Tyler Seville when that caution flag came out, but he, like you mentioned, is going to be shown in the 5th spot. So a lot of good racing here. I mean, this racetrack is starting to show that it isn't as one groove as you might think.
Yeah, we saw that in real life, the race here last year with the battle between the Busch brothers coming to the strike. That was probably one of the most entertaining races that the Kentucky Speedway has produced, Peter, and we're seeing it again here in the virtual world with the ASRS Hacksaw PC's Premier Series. It has been a wild night here, and once again we're seeing kind of the trend that we've seen over the last few weeks. Cautions breeding cautions late in the going, and honestly the amount of cautions is starting to hurt those guys on the fresher tires because they're losing their shot at getting a run because they're not able to gain as much ground because the race is going back to yellow so quickly. So this might work out for the guys like Bouchard, Sykes, and how about James Lorello in 3rd? Great job by him to dodge everything tonight. So this may benefit those guys who came down pit road a little bit earlier in the race.
Yeah, and I'm honestly a bit surprised with that. I know we've seen a lot of cautions late in these races. I was just thinking that the difference in tires, the fall off was just going to be so great that those cars would almost look like they were standing still, but I guess they just didn't have enough laps on the tires for it to matter all too much. So, like you said, that's definitely playing into the advantage of Bouchard and Sykes on that front row. You can't also rule out the strength of clean air on the nose. And Greg, we've talked about how important it is to get clean air on the nose of these race cars, especially with this current high downforce package that these drivers are racing with tonight. And Christopher Bouchard has had that clean air on every single restart. He's been able to jump out to a early lead. Craig Sykes hasn't quite been able to have the time to run him down. Now we have less than 10 more laps, less than 15 miles around the Kentucky Speedway left in tonight's feature race here. And be interesting to see if we have another caution. I mean, there's always the potential for us to go to overtime here in the American Sim Racing Series. We do have 3 attempts at a green-white checker. After the 3rd attempt, the last flag ends it, whether it's a checkered flag, caution flag, or whatnot. So it'll be interesting to see. Will we go to overtime? That's a question for the chat. Will we see any green-white checkers here tonight? Because we've seen a couple of cautions here, reading cautions, Greg.
Yeah, kind of a trend over the last few ASRS races, Peter. So Bouchard, he might be sitting pretty here if this race goes caution again. So it'll be pretty fun to see how he does on this restart, to see what he does, if he stacks him up again or if he changes up his restart zone with Stakes able to figure it out last time by what he was doing. I'm keeping my eye, though, on that 3rd row of Pate and Stewart to see what happens with those two.
We're going to step away for just a quick commercial. We'll be right back here on 3 Wide TV after some words from our sponsors.
Life happens everywhere. Like it never even happened, only happens here. The cleanup and restoration specialists at 1-800-SERVPRO and servpro.com.
All right, folks, that was a fantastically delicious commercial there from our friends over at Slyce Pizza Bar, the sponsor of tonight's Bluegrass 200, making me hungry for a little bit of pizza. And I'll tell you what, if you are in the St. Petersburg area, go check them out because they're definitely a huge sponsor of the league, and their pizzas look spectacular, as well as that ice-cold beer in that commercial. Sounds delicious. Might grab myself a beer after the race, but we still have 7 laps to go when the green flag drops, still in the hands of the number 50 machine of Christopher Bouchard. Here he is, bringing him down at 55 miles an hour. It's so slow. They'll be upwards of 170 this time. Next time by is a little bit of a wiggle out of the back end of that number 50 machine as he gets it back going straight. And look at the field start to fan out. Now, the drivers who are on fresher tires, they can't wait. Drivers like Jason Stewart, who's in the 4th position, trying to get past the number 11 of Tyler Seville. He makes that pass. Bouchard already out to a 3/10 of a second lead up at the front. Now Stewart boxed in just a little bit in that race car. Where does he go? As the 3 and the 57 make contact, battling for the 2nd position. It's going to go to Craig Sykes, but here comes Jason Stewart on fresher tires down below the number 3. This is the side-by-side battle now for 3rd. Look at Sykes getting a huge run on Bouchard, cutting down to the inside. There's some great racing here up the front, Greg.
Bouchard through a block there. He knows he's got the very fast 57 behind him. Craig Sykes has been the strongest car all day long, and now here we go. Coming to 5 laps to go, and Craig Sykes can smell that first win of the season but the guy behind him, Jason Stewart, can as well. We're 3 wide for the lead.
And Jason Stewart on those fresher tires, 4th to 1st in 1 lap. Just
Here
like
comes
that.
Troy Haight. Troy Haight on those same fresh tires. He's gotten around Bouchard. He's going to the inside of Slyce for 2nd now.
And now Troy Haight's got a huge run coming down the backstretch. Slyce on the high side, caution back in the air here at Kentucky.
Oh boy.
Trying to figure out who it might be. It looks like Alex Giese in the 77 machine on pit road here might have taken a quick tow. There you go, into the inside wall just like that. And Alex Giese's night will end. We'll see what happened here. He had some cars racing in front of him. The number 8 of Jimmy McKee under. Ooh, did McKee getting loose there? Looked like it. And Giese just caught into the left rear quarter panel, and that unnerved that 77 machine and into the inside wall. And just like that, here we go from above the number 77 machine. Yeah, you see McKee got loose there in the McKee Lawn Care Services Chevrolet. Unfortunately, ending the number 77 machine's night. But just like that, we're back under caution. Jason Stewart, your race leader. Craig Stykes in 2nd. Troy Haight got up to 3rd. Lorello in 4th. Brian Yazik up into 5th. And Greg, just like that, we're going to have to do it all again with another restart.
But an entirely different cast of characters up front now, Peter. Stykes is going to be in the same position he was, outside front row. But Jason Stewart leading the way in the number 1 now. What a power move by him to go 3 wide for the lead on that last restart. That was an incredible move by Jason Stewart to get up there in front. Remember, he feels like he had one taken away from him at Charlotte with the different strategy that he had such a good shot at taking home. Just the laps didn't work out for him. Looking for some redemption since then, and here it is with a very awesome paint scheme as well, paying tribute to a friend battling COVID-19. He has a shot at the win. How special would this be for Jason Stewart?
I think that is so awesome that Jason Stewart, who has had lots of ups and downs in this race, remember he made heavy contact with the outside wall there. I think it was, I can't remember who it might have been, but one car made contact with him coming out of turn number 4. It might have been the 87 of Crable. And that car looked completely banged up and completely junked. He came down pit road, got as much damage repaired as possible, got on a different pit strategy, and just like that, he is the current race leader, as we will have a green-white checker here at Kentucky. The first attempt at a green-white checker. Let's see if we can dial up the number 1 machine of Jason Stewart for a quick chat. Jason, Peter Short up here in the 3-wide TV booth. You got a copy?
Yeah, I gotcha.
I'll tell you what, I'm sure your heart is completely pounding after that restart with all of the chaos happening in front of you. When you saw those 2 cars battling for the race lead, both the 57 and the 50, get side by side in turn number 3 and 4, did you have any indication that you'd be able to get underneath them and take the race lead?
Yeah, it was like Jesus seeing the seas part. I saw it and just made sure I stayed low because I knew I had it, and then I screwed up going into 1 and 2, and lucky a caution came out. We just gotta hope we can hold them off, and hopefully it goes green here.
Well, you're definitely going to control the restart when we go green here in a couple of laps. So how important is it to be the control car? And now that you have a little bit of clean air on the nose, how important is that going to be?
I couldn't tell you about the clean air because I haven't been out front all night, but we're going to try to get a jump on them here and time the restart right, and hopefully hold off Troy. He's fast. I know he's coming, and Yazik's back there in 5th, all on the inside, so it's going to be tough.
Going back to, kind of the strategy that puts you in this position, you made a good call to kind of keep that set of tires. You got a lucky caution. And I know you've got the whole reason behind this car in the back of your head. You've gone through a lot tonight, and hopefully you can get through these last few laps. I mean, I'm sure it'll be a sigh of relief once you get across the start-finish line if you're able to get the win.
Oh, if we do, give me like 5 minutes because I'm going to need a damn cigarette and make a new drink.
Well, I'll tell you what, make sure you make it stiff if you get a victory. Make it a stiff drink even if you don't get across the line, because it has been an up-down night for you. And you do have Mitch Brown rooting you on in the chat here. Best of luck there, bud.
Yes, sir. I'll be happy with top 5, but we're going to see if we can bring it home.
All right. Well, folks, that was the number 1 machine of Jason Stewart. We'll let him get back to it. We're going to play a quick commercial while we have a couple more laps of pacing, and we'll be right back here on 3 Wide TV.
Life happens everywhere. Like it never even happened, only happens here. The cleanup and restoration specialists at 1-800-SERVPRO and servpro.com.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real-world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Been the entire month of February in Florida.
All right, folks, welcome back to 3 Wide TV here. Kentucky Speedway, we are having chats about that pizza behind, under the pace laps here. That beautiful, beautiful pizza. We're now really hungry, and of course, Mark Grisa in the chat, not making it any better because he says the beef jerky cheesecake of the week this week is carrot cake cheesecake. So now we're envisioning Slyce, pizza bar pizza with beef jerky,
Cheesecake.
carrot cake, cheesecake. I don't know.
And
I'll have to
racing
go eat some food.
Florida.
I'll tell you what. We have a green-white checker coming up here. Pace truck headed down pit road. Jason Stewart is the race leader in the number 1 machine. Got Craig Sykes, who's led a good portion of this race, to his outside, and look, that number 1 machine is going early. Jason Stewart got on the loud pedal early. He's already cleared Craig Sykes before they even get to the start-finish line. That's what he wanted to do. He wanted to get a jump. He wanted to get a jump over Troy Haight because he was concerned about the 28 machine. He was also concerned about Brian Yazik, as Yazik just sits underneath Troy Haight and takes the second spot. And look at Craig Sykes getting a huge run coming out of turn number 2. Battle for the race lead, side by side down the backstretch, and Sykes gonna rip it away from the number 1 machine, going off into turn number 3. But look at the number 1 machine doing it over under, and here comes Brian Yazik in the 55. 3 wide for the race lead. White flag in the air at Kentucky Speedway. What
I'm biased.
a
I
race.
think every race should end like this. 3 wide for the lead on the final lap. Troy Haight coming up into the mix as well. Yazik trying to get away. Remember, we talked about how much thought he was overdue for a win, and here he is coming down the backstretch for the final time in the race lead, and they're side by side behind him. This one's playing into the hands of the 55.
Oh, and James Laurel in the number 3 machine in the outside retaining wall, but we'll keep our focus on this battle for the second position. Yazik gonna come across the line and win at Kentucky. Second place goes to the number 1 machine of Jason Stewart by only 0.03 of a second. Troy Haight finishes 3rd, and we have cars racing across the start-finish line. What a finish, 2nd week in a row that we have had. Just a 3rd week in a row. What am I saying? Actually, 4th week in a row, going all the way back to Michigan. I have been on my toes for every single race. Yazik restarted in 5th with 2 laps to go. Took the race lead coming to the white flag. And I'm sure that man in the number 57 is absolutely beside himself. Got Woody Mahan as well as the number 27 machine Pete Baskin's couple teammates, and here comes Michael Krobach to give a congratulatory wave to the number 55 machine. Greg, 4 weeks in a row here in the American Sim Racing Series, each one has had me absolutely floored. I mean, Michigan, we had the fuel mileage race. We didn't know if the drivers were going to make it. Chicagoland, we didn't know who was going to win that. There was all the craziness at the end. And then last week, Indianapolis, more craziness and carnage right at the end of the race and some late race cautions. And here again tonight. What a finish. And congratulations to Brian Yazik getting his first win of the Hacksaw PC's season. Came into tonight 5th place in points, the first car without a win. And he's done it here tonight, Greg. What a race.
Brian Yazik led 1 lap all day, and it was the last lap. Unbelievable performance by Brian Yazik tonight. Finally breaking through and getting that first win of the season. Great job, and his teammates coming up to celebrate with him. Brian Yazik leading the flyby here. Unbelievable performance out of him. Jason Stewart holds off Troy Haight for second. Great battle between them, but I am just so impressed. Where did he even come from, Peter? He was way back in the field and managed to pull it off, and no doubt he is going to come down and do a very long-awaited celebration. Here he goes. He's going to burn him down here on the front stretch. Winner of the Slyce Pizza Bar Bluegrass 200 is Brian Yazik, the 55.
Absolutely awesome for that. HPTsimulation.com on the hood to get the win here tonight. And like you said, burning it down right there across the Kentucky Speedway start-finish line. No flagman to be seen here tonight. Not quite sure. I guess he's still sleeping somewhere in the motorhome. We'll have to try and dial him up after the race. But Brian Yazik definitely showed up here tonight. And in those closing laps, of course, remember, he was on slightly fresher tires than the drivers like Craig Sykes, and Sykes finished 5th here tonight. So, my oh my, great finish here once again. We're going to step away for a few moments and see if we can catch our breath and get a few last words from some of the series sponsors. But Brian Yazik's engine, toast. He burnt it down here on the front stretch. We'll be right back here on 3Y TV.
Every day in business starts with a number. Output, productivity, efficiency, all measured in numbers, because data drives decisions. And if fire or water damage strikes, the numbers for your business can slow or even stop. Unless you know this one, 1-800-SERVPRO, the #1 choice in commercial cleanup and restoration.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Life happens everywhere. Like it never even happened, only happens here. The cleanup and restoration specialists at 1-800-SERVPRO and SERVPRO.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Kentucky Speedway, where tonight's Slyce Pizza Bar Bluegrass 200 has come to its conclusion here in the Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series. But we have the top 3 finishers lined up to talk to, and I'll tell you what, I'm sure there's going to be some very happy drivers with their pit strategy after this is all said and done. Let's see if we can dial up the third-place finisher here tonight, Troy Haight. And Troy, in the 3Y TV booth with us now. And Troy, I tell you what, we talked to you a little bit ago. I thought you were in the catbird position there, but man, you had the number 55 of Yazik just absolutely timed that restart perfectly, got underneath you, kind of got you shuffled out of the picture. But had there been a couple more laps, I think Troy Haight would have finished in second as you battled with the number 1 machine coming to the line. Nonetheless, though, fantastic finish. Tell us a little bit about your night.
Yeah, it's my first race on this new Kentucky, so I wasn't sure, with the long run. And I think I messed the tires up the first run and fell all the way back to like 25th. So that wasn't fun, but I think the track cooled down as the race went on and the tire wears better, and the track came to me then, I think.
Well, yeah, no doubt that the track cooled down. I mean, we saw it upwards of 110 degrees Fahrenheit at one point. And right now, after the race, the track has cooled down to 93. So definitely a lot of track conditions changed, but it was very, very slick out there tonight. And we definitely heard a lot of drivers complain about the tire drop-off. In the first 20 laps, you lost about 2 seconds per lap. How difficult is this new Kentucky to save some tires? And what did you do differently to save tires from that second run on forward?
I was just taking it easy more, like the first couple laps, and not heat the tires up too early and have them for the the long run.
Well, you definitely did a fantastic job of bouncing back in that. I mean, we highlighted that in the broadcast tonight. We noticed that you were well back in the pack, and then we saw, oh look, wow, Troy Haight's starting to work his way forward. It's a fantastic run here tonight. But how important is it to get a solid run here in the middle part of the season?
Yeah, just gotta, I think top 10s aren't good enough. You gotta be more up in the top 5 consistently to, move up, forward in the championship points.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, coming into tonight, you gained 1 spot last week. You actually passed Jason Stewart, who finished 1 spot in front of you tonight. So you're going to be really tight. But nonetheless, I mean, you're inside the top 10 in points. And looking forward, that will put you into the playoff picture in a couple weeks' time. So getting those good finishes like you did tonight, definitely going to add up towards the end of the season. But, just tell us a little bit about that gamble that you made to stay out and get that lucky caution. You kind of said you were just kind of doing something a little bit different. You didn't really know whether to pit or not, but in retrospect, it definitely was the right call.
Yeah, I was still undecided what to do there late, but it came out, and then I pitted, and I came out like 6th on that restart, so it did work out for me there.
Absolutely. Well, we have this race here tonight at Kentucky, but it's not the end of the season. That was only round 19 of the schedule. And next week we go to the Young Gun Creations 150 at New Hampshire. What are your thoughts about New Hampshire?
I don't run there too much, but I'm all right there sometimes. See how it goes.
Yeah, definitely quite a bit of a different racetrack than what we came to tonight. We'll see a lot of brake rotors glowing at New Hampshire this time and next week. But before we let you go, you got any shout-outs for us?
Yeah, I want to thank PNN Water Filters, War Turtle Racing, you guys in the broadcast, Jim and Sam with the league. I think that's it.
All right. Well, Troy, best of luck next week at New Hampshire. It's going to be another tight field, but the mile racetrack out there on the East Coast, definitely going to be a good one. We'll see you there.
Thanks.
All right. Well, now we're going to have to find out whether or not the number one machine of Jason Stewart has fixed his drink and had his smoke, because he did say he might not be able to make the first interview. Let's see if we can bring him up here into the 3Y TV booth. Jason Stewart, you got a copy?
Yeah, I made it.
Well, I'll tell you what, hopefully you made that drink a little bit stiffer, because you are the runner-up driver here tonight, but nonetheless, fantastic run for the number one machine. And I really want to put the race on the back burner here. I want to kind of open the floor to you. I mean, you have a friend who's in a dire situation. It's the reason you ran the white number one machine. I want you to talk to that first.
Yeah, he's stuck up. Yeah, I see you there with COVID and gave him a collapsed lung and got pneumonia because of it, and medically induced coma. I just hope he pulls through.
Yeah, of course, bigger picture than just racing out there on the racetrack. But, you know, the best way to kind of get that on the back side of your head is to sometimes get out there and sim race. You know, that's something that I do personally when I need something to get my mind off of it. Just get out there, turn some laps, you know, focus on hitting your marks and all that good thing. But here tonight, a little bit of a different strategy. You stayed out there, had a fresh set of tires on pit road. You got a lucky caution, came away with a second place finish. I don't really think there's anything you can be all too, you know, upset about tonight. Great race for you, but tell us about kind of how your race went from the start, because we saw you in the wall at one point.
Yeah, I got wrecked twice. I'm still wondering if that affected my speed there a little at the end. It's just, I'll take second all day long, and I know Brian's faster, and I know Troy's faster. I'm not the fastest guy out here, but goddamn, we came home second.
I'll tell you what, definitely a great run for that number one machine. Not the first time we have seen you throw the dice this season, and it's worked out for you. I got to say, keep doing it, because you're making our job really fun up here in the 3Y TV booth. But next week we go to New Hampshire, much different racetrack from tonight, 1 mile. Kind of races like a short track. You usually see a lot of beat and banging there. It's very difficult to kind of get your line right. It's a rhythm racetrack, I like to call it, because you really have to find your braking groove and hit your marks lap after lap. What are your thoughts about New Hampshire?
It's not one of my best tracks, but probably since the last time I raced it, I moved to VR, and most of the tracks I hated with VR, I somehow come to love, like Darlington. I hated Darlington, but you put VR on and you go to Darlington, man, it's fun, and somehow found some speed. So hopefully we can do that at New Hampshire and keep the luck on our side. I don't know how we keep on getting it. My teammate Tim has the worst luck in the world. I need to give him a little bit here.
Yeah, Tim has definitely not had the best couple of races in that number 41 machine for sure. Again, getting involved in an accident not of his own doing here tonight at Kentucky. But before we let you go, Jason, you got any shout-outs for us?
Yep, thanks for what you do. Thanks for Jim and Sam for putting this on and dealing with a bunch of us every week. I know it's a tough job and everybody has different views, but we're making it fun and out here trying to have fun. And thanks to my sponsors, Checker Flag PCs, Hacksaw PCs. We're both good buddies, and could build you. Either one of us could build you one hell of a product. Sorry, can't talk tonight. Patriot Media, Mod Chaser Mitch, TNT Firearms. I don't know. Yeah, I don't have any sponsors on my card to look. I'm just out of words tonight. But thank you guys. Thanks everybody. And we tried to get it done, but just couldn't complete it. But we're very happy with the second.
I'll tell you what, you don't have a sponsor on your car here tonight, but you are able to get a second place finish and give them a shout out here on 3Y TV. So definitely pretty cool for you, Jason. We'll see you next week at New Hampshire. Best of luck there, buddy, and best wishes for your pal.
And hopefully everybody, when they lay down tonight, can do a prayer for him. His name's Jason.
All right, Jason. Definitely will be in my thoughts and prayers here tonight. And Kathy in the chat saying, sending healing, love, and prayers to him as well. But we'll see you next week. Let's see if we can dial up tonight's race winner, getting his first win of the 2020 Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series, and that would be the man who came into tonight 5th place in points, Brian Yazik, the first driver on the points without a win this season. Well, Brian, that's no longer, because you're in victory lane here tonight. That number 55 HPPsimulation.com machine looked like early you were saving tires. You figured out how to save tires. A little bit concerned because you showed a lot of late run speed under that long green flag run that we had. I was a little bit concerned you wouldn't show that short run pace, but you proved me wrong, going from 5th to 1st in a lap here at Kentucky. How'd you do it?
Well, thanks. I'm still trying to figure it out. I had to watch the replay. And really the biggest thing is on that restart, the outside lane kind of checked up just a little bit. I don't know if I don't know what happened, but they checked up and that let me get real clear and, let me get inside Troy there to the end, going into 1. And then once we cleared him out of 2, and I kind of looked at the situation, I saw Jason blocking and Hill kind of fighting back and forth. I thought, all right, well, if we just be smart here, we'll have a fighting chance at it. So we took a real shallow entry into 3, and by God, they pushed up just like I kind of thought they were going to, and we put her to the bottom, and I don't think we lifted again until probably about the middle of 1 and 2, the next lap.
Well, we saw a lot of different strategies here tonight, and what kind of got you in that position was the fact that you guys, around lap number 50, I think it might have been actually lap number 50, you decided to stay out there on the racetrack. A lot of the drivers around you, like Craig Sykes, decided to come down pit road and use a fresh set of tires, even though they had about 16 laps on their previous set. And you said, I'm just going to stick on these 16-lap tires and see what we can do with it. I mean, tell us what was going through your mind at that point in the race. Were you thinking kind of towards the end of the race? We've seen a lot of late race cautions as of late over the last few weeks. Was that going through your head as well?
Yeah, I mean that was the overall thought to it. Mike and I and Woody and Pete, we all kind of hammered out the strategy, and we knew we wanted to try to get around 50 on that first stint. Just because that way you kind of knock a big chunk of the race out on one set of tires, and you're gonna have 2 to play with. And that caution came out, not very long after. But the guys that short pitted were their hands were forced, so they had to burn that set, and we hung out and we kind of shuffled the back half of the top 10 there. And we thought, man, all right, well, there's another race that strategy wise is going to slip away from us. But man, we finally got one. That's awesome. I was worried about the short run speed, and I thought, man, the hell with it. We're going to get a big old run here. And I told him on Discord, what he asked me, he goes, what are you going to do here? I said, well, if I get to 3rd, I'm not lifting. And by God, we finally got one. God.
It has been quite a while since we last saw the 55 back victory lane. I think it was last year at Homestead, Miami, if you correct me if I'm wrong there. But definitely great race for that 55 here tonight. I mean, under that first green flag run, we saw you were the fastest car at one point over 5-lap average towards the end of the run. And I definitely saw that you started around the 18th position or so and moved your way into the top 10. So we knew you were fast. Just that short run pace was something we didn't see at the beginning, but you definitely used it all up there at the end. Like you said, just kind of putting everything out there and getting the win. And fantastic job here tonight, Brian.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks again, Peter. Yeah, it's that short run speed. We weren't too worried about it at the start of the race, and I had a big bobble in qualifying. I mean, I damn near put it into the fence out of turn 2. So that's kind of where we started out back, and I really worked on, just keeping the right rear on it, because I could feel when the car was loading up in the corner, especially in 1 and 2, you could really feel that it would start to kind of get a little loose on you, and you start heating up that right rear tire, and it just makes everything angry. So the whole goal that first probably 5 laps was not get the car sideways, and then just kind of really drive to that lap time to make it work. I saw Jason out front, man. I knew he's running that car for his friend, and I thought, man, son of a bitch, I'm gonna have to be the bad guy here. So there's that. It's a tough situation. You know, it's always, you heard it in his voice. He was real choked up about that. So, you know, it's 2020 is a weird time. I mean, I'm sitting here. On one hand, my wife and I got some really, really good news. Can't really share just yet. You know, a little while ago, and then, you know, with everything ugly in the world, you know, between all the pandemic and COVID and stuff like that, and I just I lost a friend of mine earlier this week, and that's the reality of it. It wasn't COVID. It wasn't. It was a raw deal, and it just sucks because he left behind a 10-year-old girl that doesn't have a dad now, and that's unfortunate. I hate to, you know, kind of end this one on that note, but so I mean, for this win, I'm looking out for my buddy Chris Newman. You know, it's just, I feel bad for all of them, and I'm glad that, you know, they don't watch this sort of stuff, and I don't know, just kind of feels good to get one back for the good guys in 2020, you know.
Absolutely. And, you know, I was saying to Jason, for me personally, as competitive as sim racing is, you know, getting out there on a racetrack, turning laps, focusing on your apexes, it kind of puts you in your own small world for a little bit, more so than if you're playing any other race or any other video game. You know, because racing, you have to be so focused, even in sim racing, that you know, it kind of gets your mind off of things for a while. And when I'm sick or whatnot, I enjoy it, and a lot of us do, and that's why we do sim racing. We enjoy it, and it's a great opportunity on broadcasts like this to, you know, get yourself out there, make yourself heard. We all enjoy that sort of thing. There's a lot of personality in sim racing, and that's one of the things that I've enjoyed most is getting to know people and hearing about different people and what they go through in life and all that stuff, because I think it's a really close-knit community, especially here in the American Sim Racing Series, as I've come to find out in the last year and a half or so that I've broadcasted it. But let's look forward to next week. Next week we got New Hampshire mile racetrack. We're going to have a lot more braking going on there. Like I was saying earlier, it races like a short track. What are your thoughts about New Hampshire?
New Hampshire. Yeah, fun statistic for y'all. New Hampshire was the site of my first ever ASRS win back in 2015 in the Truck Series. So the tracks always kind of hold a little special place to me. It's a tough track because you get up on that top lane, and especially, you know, now you could really just kind of carry that momentum and fight off from the bottom, because the bottom just doesn't have the grip to make it work. So qualifying is going to be of the utmost importance. But you know, I'll tell you what, we're going to go and give it hell in this HPP simulation machine. Thumbs up, cancer down, Loud Pedal Motorsports. Amsoil by Adam Littell. You know, clipping that apex. All the people. CJ Automotive. Shout out to my buddy Nick, who's also going through some stuff as well. Nick Cohan, we love you. You know, just it's good to bring a little bit of positivity into the world every once in a while. But yeah, New Hampshire, we're gonna show up next week. We're gonna have some fun with it, and you know, if we get the breaks to kind of roll our way, you know, who knows? We could be talking to each other again next week.
Absolutely. Got his first career win in New Hampshire. Will he get another one next week? We'll have to wait and find out. But Brian, thanks for stopping by, and congratulations on your win.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
All right. Well, folks, some good interviews here tonight on 3 Wide TV. Definitely some great words from the drivers here tonight. But let's see if we can dial up tonight's finishing order for you right here on 3 Wide TV. Yazik took home the win, first win of the season for that, number 55 HPPsimulation.com Ford in tonight's Slyce Pizza Bar Bluegrass 200. Jason Stewart coming home in second. Troy Haight coming home third position. Great run for him. We see Troy Haight every once in a while pick up a podium, and really, I don't think it'll be all too long before we see him in victory lane. Tyler Seville in the number 11 machine. He is the highest finisher of the Slyce Pizza Bar drivers. The Will Worcester Racing 11 machine finished in 4th. His teammate Craig Sykes finishing 1 spot behind him in 5th. Meanwhile, in 6th position, Jay Crable in the War Turtle Racing number 87. Great recovery for him because that number 87 machine had quite a bit of damage for him, and that's, I believe, his first career top 10 in the Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series. So I'm sure he'll be super excited with that. He got his race car in, his real-life race car, in action this past weekend. Great to follow Jay Crable's endeavors with his real-life racing, and great to see him get a top 10 here tonight. Woody Mahan in the number 84 machine, he slipped back to 7th. He was a contender here tonight. Will Worcester, another contender, finished down in 8th. Christopher Bouchard was the race leader with about 7 laps to go, but he finishes all the way down in 9th. And rounding out your top 10, the number 17 of Richard Stallings. In the 11th position, it was AJ Digby, the number 14 machine. That's a good bounce back for him because he was involved in a couple late race scuffles as well. Alan Young in the number 24 machine, he came into tonight 12th place in points. He finishes in the 12th position. Tony Schoen, good run for him in the number 33 machine, even though he had a few ups and downs in the race in 13th. James Morello down in 14th. He got pushed up into the outside wall, I believe, on the final lap, which is why he got shuffled down the order. Adam Jersky in the Beef Jersky's Cheesecakes. He was baking a carrot cake tonight in that number 69 machine, finishing in 15th. Jared Haggerty finishing in 16th position. Chris Hughes comes home in 17th. J.R. Bash in 18th. Cody Spiker 19th in the number 19 machine. And Jimmy McKee in the number 8 McKee Lawn Care Services number 8 machine comes home in 20th. Sam Crow comes home 21st after he was involved in a late race accident. 21st, I should say. 22nd to Richard Fletcher in the number 43. John Van Varillas in 23rd. Tim Knott 24th. We heard from Jason Stewart that he just can't find any luck in that number 41 machine. Good news is I think he was smoking at one point, so I guess the crew got him back out there on the racetrack without a smoking race car to finish 24th. Michael Crowbot comes home 25th. He also ran out of luck here tonight. Wrong place, wrong time for the number 72 machine. Pete Baskins, 26th. Alex Giese in the number 77 machine. Once again, great qualifying run, but got involved in a late race accident. Comes home 27th. Greg Evans, very strong here again tonight. Didn't lead all too many laps, but he was your pole sitter, coming home 28th. John Jenkins, after that connection troubles in the middle portion of the race, comes home 10 laps down in 29th. Michael Whiting in the number 44, 30th. And rounding out your 31 car field here tonight, the number 86 of Todd Kirkwood, 100 laps down. And the most laps led here tonight, the number 57 machine of Craig Stykes. Well, that was another spectacular race. 4 weeks in a row that I have been absolutely astounded by the American Sim Racing Series, Hacksaw PC's Premier Cup Series. If you liked this race, make sure you hit the like button because I don't think you're going to see all too many finishes better than this one. And, of course, join us on Thursday night for more American Sim Racing Series action when we go to the Boswell's Country Roads Harley-Davidson Thursday Night Throwback Cup Series for 1987 NASCAR Cup Series action at Old Daytona. It'll be super bumpy. It'll be super fun right here. A lot of the same drivers in action there. Make sure you don't miss it. Same place, same time, right here on 3Y TV. Before we go, I want to give a few shout-outs to some of the series sponsors: Hacksaw PC, Surf Pro, DB Sim Racing, American Regardless, Glassdoor Brewing, Victory Lane, Quick Oil Change, Kirkwood Transportation, Patriot Media and Marketing, Step Tire, Falcon Race Wraps, and Slyce Pizza Bar for sponsoring tonight's Slyce Pizza Bar Bluegrass 200. But make sure you also join us next week, same time, same place, for more action right here on 3Y TV for action from New Hampshire. We want to give our friends over at SimTV a big shout out for the not the graphics package, but the cameras, and of course Mr. Carlos Acosta for manning the cameras each and every week. Carlos, you do a fantastic job. For myself, Peter Short, Greg Rentz, and the man behind the booth, Mr. Carlos Acosta, we want to give each and every one of you a good night. We'll see you next week. And until then, see ya!